Hold on just a sec. Getting the sugar and the iced coffee. Hello. Oh my gosh. Put the lid on without spilling it. I fell asleep after having dinner, so I decided I'll have my iced coffee. But yeah, we missed the live footage of this event. Van versus small car. Cam slip. I'll do one next time I get out of the shower. Let's see. Gotta hit the... You saw the cam slip too? Let's do it after I get my hair cut, for God's sakes. It was this van, white van, hit like a little car, but I wasn't here when it happened, so I don't know how it really happened. The car might have ran a red light while he was turning left. There's a cop over on the corner. There's about 3 cops there. Tow truck already arrived. One of the guys is just standing by his car looking upset. Hey, Forster. Well, I'd like to do it at a nice hotel, too. They're all just standing around. Well, I've been lucky not to have any real car wrecks. I've been in one with other people driving. That's why I prefer to drive. But God, I guess as I get older, I thought as you get older, you become a better... My mom was really great driver. She hardly ever drove fast. Maybe up on the freeway once in a while. But me, I don't feel like I'm getting better at driving. I was probably better at 7 years old than I am now. My dad started me out at 3 driving. Believe it or not. 4 skiing. I don't know why they... But I guess if I had kids, I would do the same thing. I taught my nephew how to ride a motorcycle at about, I don't know, 7 or 8. And he was natural. He was good at it. So they're towing... I guess no, they're towing the car first, maybe. I should go make them offer on the van right now. Ooh, the iced coffee is really good. They made it just right. The last time was way too strong. I'm up front till noon, but I drank 2 of them. It's even the right color, I guess. Oh, what, the van's gonna drive off? So he totaled the little car? Oh my God. Yep, maybe I'll get a van. And try not to ever get in a wreck. Somebody ran the light. I want McDonald's. Ugh, there's not much. It's funny, I've got a free Big Mac there. I've had it for 2 weeks, and I have not claimed it. One of these days. I'm just not in the mood for it. And the last Big Mac I had wasn't that great. Oh, it looks like that car has like a tire injury. Ah, the van gets to go. The van is actually drivable. Oh my God. Okay, I should have found out what brand van that is. He took out the little car. And that's the guy that was standing there looking all upset. And that's why I don't even like driving this Honda, really. Because I have a feeling, too. I mean, in a crash, I'd probably be okay, but the car wouldn't. Yeah, I've never been in a big car wreck. I've been in some motorcycle crashes that were my fault. completely. Like going too fast around a corner, stuff like that. I'd had a lot of little. I started my motorcycle crashing career at about 5 or 6, something like that. It was a mini bike at first. So yeah, I got to get rid of this car, and maybe I wonder if there's bigger vehicles that get just as good a fuel mileage. Oh, I need to probably shut down the engine here. At least those truck drivers that just pick up cars in accidents and when they break down, I don't mind them. It's the ones that go just pick up cars because you're parked wrong or something, like impound stuff. Those tow truck drivers, I don't like them at all. And had I ever been one, I would have wanted a lot of money to steal people's cars. That'd be funny. The cops come over and ask me why I'm recording. Say it's my First Amendment right. Oh, and I might have said it was. Hi, Bianca. Yeah, I'm you and you're me. This evening, you got them all discombobulated. You obviously can't handle the truth, and that was cool. Keep it up. You're doing great work. You're doing the Lord's work. And he even rage quit for like a few minutes, didn't he? Got him even to rage quit. Said he was stuck in traffic, like what? With his imaginary Batmobile? His imaginary Fatmobile? You gotta quit sounding like me, too. You actually write better than I do, though. But I think I remember one time they said, like, your grammar was, like, good. My grammar isn't always that good, and I misspell words occasionally. God, this comes up. Yeah, but don't be so creepy in the future. I know where I am. Nobody else needs to know. Tell them behind the scenes. I'm in the same place from last time. I was trying to get a better angle, then I figured it was best just to go back where I usually sit. So I tried for McDonald's, I couldn't really get a good angle, and then I thought I'd go over to this other place here across the street, no good angle. It's funny, people want to see something, so only thing better would have been if I would have caught the whole accident. And good news, nobody got hurt. There's no ambulance here. So it's really not, it might be dramatic, but it's not. No one got hurt. Oh yeah, I had a friend who, God, from the second he'd wake up to the moment he'd go to sleep, he couldn't go do anything without lighting up a joint. And then one day, I don't think it was him, but somebody else accused me of smoking weed, like, constantly. And I said, it's only when I'm around this guy are we smoking weed quite a lot, because I didn't wake up. Last thing I want to do when I wake up is put myself back to sleep. And then I quit for 25 years. But I couldn't believe one of my friends accused me of that. I'm like, dude, it's the other guy that has to roast one up to do anything. To have lunch, to go out after lunch, to go to work. Got home from work. It was constant. And the good news, I haven't seen him in 20 years. I've talked to him, but he lives 800 miles away from me, which is, I think I prefer. Oh, look, there's someone actually sweeping. Is that the tow truck driver or what? What if the tow truck drivers actually sweep up a little bit? Oh, and he's grabbing because it's an intersection, they're grabbing some of the parts, throwing them in the back seat of the car. Wonder if that person sweeping came with the tow truck driver. It's obviously probably his broom. 1-800-STRIPPER. I gotta call that one. I wonder if they're real strippers. Or is that Striper? Maybe it's Striper. I was hoping it was Striper. Striper. I don't think we have 1-800-STRIPPERs here yet. We're getting them soon. I think it's Striper. Stripper, I think, has 2 P's, if I can recall correctly. We used to work at a bar that on Tuesday nights they had male strippers. Boy, was there a lot of women there on Tuesday nights. And the guys were all like gym, they all had gym memberships, tans. I never saw them strip because I was working the front. I didn't want to. But the women were having a hell of a good time inside, all leaving smiling and happy. I think the first couple of weeks I worked there, I didn't realize Tuesday nights was male stripper night. It's funny, you work somewhere and you're not even aware of what's going on inside. I was having too much fun at the front door, IDing people and waving people in and selling memberships and flirting. They're good old days. Now if I ever work at and there's somebody on a scooter riding in traffic. I didn't know you could theoretically do that. And on a bicycle, I guess you can. God, that's so dangerous. Oh, and then he just passed a car. Boy, I would have got myself killed on a scooter for sure. Came close enough with motorcycles. There goes the damaged car. I guess the wheel is still on, but they lost a lot of parts. Swept up. I didn't even pay attention. I guess they came with 2 people, one to sweep up. All the cops are gone. Well, that's it for the drama. Damn it. Now I was gonna call 1-800-STRIPPER and say, can you come help me clean the house? Yeah, I don't know how you take out a $20,000 loan without having a job, but I remember in college, they issued me credit cards where I had about that much credit without having a full-time job, and boy, was that stupid. It wasn't stupid of me to get it, but I wouldn't give out $20,000 in credit to someone without a full-time job and without at least a 2-year job history. It's no wonder a lot of people defaulted on their credit cards. And I did really well with them at first, but once I needed money, that was a whole nother. I had an emergency or two. I guess buying a Jeep is not an emergency, but I bought a Jeep with a credit card once, too. But I think I did the whole. I went to a bank and got a line of credit for my credit card. That was so stupid. Good news, when I sold the Jeep, I got all my money back. And I had it for about 2 years. So I got lucky. That was so stupid. I would have been better off getting just a regular bank loan, paying that off. 'Cause I don't know, I was paying like 18%. It's a cool Jeep, but not that cool. Not 18% a year cool. Or was it a month? I can't remember. Just now I know I don't buy vehicles with credit cards. I might rent one with a credit card, but not buy one. Been there, did that. Foolish. Lime scooters. Okay, they're still used. Lime is still a thing. Oh, cool. Yeah, I hear like even in China, they have a lot of used rental bikes and stuff, just hundreds and thousands of them that I don't know that were even used. So I don't know how China can produce that many bikes and just scrap them. And all that money spent to make them, and then hopefully they recycle the frames. Well, credit union is probably the best route to go. I guess I got one loan, and was it 2020? It took me, I don't know when, a couple years later to pay it all off. And I don't want to do that again. Or if so, I'd rather like to do it the last few years of my life and then default on it. Where am I from? Northern California. I didn't choose it. That's where my mom had me. She loved California. I like some parts of it. But there's a lot of things about California I don't like. Too much in any big city, it's too crowded. Traffic twice a day. In the real big cities, it's like traffic all day long. I don't like driving in traffic. I don't know that anyone that does, but people get used to it. And all these people that go to work and have a half an hour, 45-minute, 2-hour commute. We had like, I don't know, I wouldn't call it commute time, or just when I remember going to get a hamburger one time, not for me, for my nephew. Got conned into it. I'm sure my sister knew it was rush hour. And it took me a good 45 minutes to get somewhere it should have taken 10 minutes. Maybe 5 minutes back, 10 minutes back. And I was gone for a frickin' hour, and I probably handed him a cold hamburger. Yeah, I like Texas Roadhouse when it's a good cook. I think I've had the ribs there years ago. They're good. Steaks there, generally good. If not, send them back, ask for another one. I've only done that once. Prime rib, when it's the right person's good, but I don't wonder if they make the prime rib there. They probably make it early in the day, and then they slice it, and I don't know how they reheat it up. But the only 1 out of 3, one of them was like room temperature. I was kind of upset because I was trying to tell the manager I'm not paying $30-$40 for a room temperature meal. She gave me a coupon for a blooming onion. I don't even know where the hell that went. I think she did took 10% off and gave me a little coupon, and I never used it. I just now make sure I ask the waitress or waiter, like, is it a day that they would order prime rib? And then sometimes I tell them one time I got the one that was room temperature. It was good, but come on. If I don't eat the whole thing and bring some of it home, then I can eat at room temperature. Yeah, it depends who's working, because sometimes with a good cook, it'll be his day off, or it's a new cook, they're training, and I can't say I could do any better if I was cooking for like hundreds of people. I'd say it'd get um, complicated. And I wasn't mad at them, but boy, I don't like arguing with managers when the customer says something's room temperature. I mean, because I should have said, do you want to try a bite? And cut her a nice little piece out of it. And I don't think they're working on tiny margins there, but they sure act like it nowadays. Like they don't get the money for that steak, they're going to go bankrupt. I'm like, whatever. I don't like Outback anymore. It seems to me, no matter what, when they ask you how you want your steak, it's always going to come medium rare. You can say well done, you're going to get medium rare. You can say well done, you're going to get medium rare. 'Cause it seems like, I mean, years ago I used to order rare or medium rare. I think I learned at Outback, always go medium. But then I'll order medium and I get medium rare every time. They told you to leave. Yeah, because they think you're me and I'm you. Outback's not bad. You know, if somebody said they wanted to go to Outback, I'd go, but I'd probably tell the waiter or waitress this story saying every time I come here, I always get medium rare. I want medium, just barely, or just, a little bit pink inside, not bleed. Because at Outback, it seems like you cut into the steak and it hemorrhages right there on the plate. And they used to be really good when they first opened, but now they're so streamlined corporate that I don't know. I don't know where they even get their product from. Oh, wow. You must order lobster as a side dish. Lobster, macaroni and cheese with lobster. Yeah, there was a time when my dad thought I was being a little extravagant, but I never was. I mean, like when he offered to take us out, he was the one being extravagant, taking us to French restaurants. I have never been really impressed. Maybe there was one French restaurant I really liked in San Francisco, and for the life of me, I can't remember the name. I'd have to ask my friend. It's a place they always took their family. They actually took me. And I had something called Tornadoes Wellington that's basically beef Wellington. That was pretty good. That was like a filet mignon. They didn't have to tell me about it's like covered in liver pate, but they bake it in a pie crust. And that was actually really good, but I wish they hadn't told me about the liver part of it. Tasted good, though. I don't know, it's more expensive to go out. No? It's maybe $50. Had we have brought her son, would have been 70, maybe it would have been close to 100. So I think all we did was eat 25, $30 a piece with a drink, like a soda or something. And thank God she wasn't extravagant. And I'd rather order less food and I eat it all than order more food and have to take it home. I mean, I don't mind leftovers, but I'd prefer not to. I had one girlfriend that always go hog wild and buy more than she could eat. And eventually, after about a year, I said, why don't you just order what you can eat? And I think I pissed her off. Because she'd bring the stuff home. It'd be one thing if she was feeding it to her dog or to somebody. Maybe her brother was eating it. I don't know. But she'd never eat the leftovers. I'm like, And at the time, I think I was in between jobs. And I'm like, why don't you just order what you can eat instead of ordering like for two? Because at first I didn't mind, the first couple of dates or the first couple times we went out to dinner, I didn't mind her ordering a little extra. But after a year or so of it, I'm like, you're not going to eat that. And I know it. Then the last date I was on, it was late at night when the girl said she was hungry. We went to Denny's. And boy, none of us ate our food. I think it was about $40-50 for breakfast at Denny's. I'm not going back to Denny's because it wasn't the cost. was because it sucked. How do you screw up breakfast? Go to Denny's and they'll show you how they can. Maybe not all Denny's are that ridiculous, but all the ones here in the state I've been to suck. I haven't been to a good Denny's here in 25 years, probably. There was one kind of near where my dad lived that it was okay, but now they all suck. They all got the same type of chef that doesn't know how to cook an American meal. And then I think it's really their product. Uh, they and I noticed this like with Nicholas Brothers, they had certain levels of quality of food for certain restaurants. Like a top end restaurant will buy their highest quality food, or something like Denny's would buy their lowest quality of food. Where they didn't mind produce that didn't look perfect, or tomatoes that were still green or damaged. Denny's, when they made the food tasty, God, that was a long time ago. I think the last Denny's I ate at in Vegas, it was good. It was good in Vegas, and one time, oh, where was it? Cedar City, or the last time in Cedar City, it was edible. It was fine. The girl I knew in Vegas, she liked Denny's for some reason. The ones we went to were fine. But again, that was like 2012, 13 with that lady. It's the lady that Turtle said was a prostitute. I don't think she was. But maybe how I explained it. Because after 2 weeks, she tells me that she's in danger of being deported. I never crossed my mind she wasn't here illegally, but she stayed here. She'd overstayed her visa. So I get that. And I was like, I'm not going to marry somebody after knowing them 2 weeks. At least with the Filipinos, they will give you $25,000 or more. I mean, years ago, 10 grand. They usually do it with their relatives or something. Not necessarily that they arrange through their relatives to marry an American, and then they pay the guy, or or if it's a Filipino, they get 10 grand. And it's a sham marriage, and after 2 years, you never see the person again. So I knew someone that did that, and I was like, holy shit. Didn't know that. And I probably at this stage of my age, I wouldn't marry someone for 10 grand. Too dangerous. Knowing my luck, get divorced and they'd take me for everything I got. I like to try random good restaurants, but there really aren't any around here. And if so, there's one little sushi place over here that I get, what do you call it? Well, I know what I was eating. A bento box with teriyaki chicken, but sometimes the teriyaki chicken, I could actually make teriyaki chicken better than they can, but the tempura and the fresh steamed rice and the salad and whatever, and I usually get some jasmine tea. On a good day, it's pretty good, but I'm glad they improved, because the first couple times I ate there, I was almost like, I'm not coming back. I know another place that does tempura really good, but all the rest of their food's Korean, and nothing on the menu really sounded like anything I wanted. So I just go in the tempura and then vegetable. It's too bad she didn't have like an assortment, because at that point now it's like too much of it. So I don't go there very often. It's just hard to find good food. I didn't find it hard back home, but I noticed after 2000, after 9/11, and then even up after 2008, a lot of places worse, closing early. I wouldn't say the quality of food had gone down. It was just harder to find good restaurants. A lot of them had gone out of business, maybe. I even knew a place that was almost exclusively vegetarian or vegan, and actually almost everything they served was good. But I can't find anything like that here. Because I don't mind once in a while. If it's a good food, I don't care if it's what it is. Indian, vegetarian, Greek, I'll eat there. But and it was my mom that it was her favorite restaurant. It finally went out of business. Her and her friends were probably keeping the place in business. And I can't remember because they'd take me every once in a while, and I can't remember eating. I don't know though. Maybe it was not 100% vegetarian. Because maybe there was something I could order, but most vegetarians don't want their food cooked even near meat. So I can't remember what I used to eat, but always found something good. I guess the Mexican food we would eat there, I'd call it California Mexican food, 'cause it's not traditional Mexican. But even places like El Torito were good. There's a place called La Piñata. God, everything they made was good, in my opinion. And they'd finish it off. I don't know, they'd prepare the plate, and it seems like they put a plate in the oven for a minute or two to heat up the plate, so the plates were always hot. It kept your food warm until pretty much the last bite. But it was like when they put fried beans on it with cheese, maybe they'd finish it off in an oven really quick. I mean, they wouldn't leave it in the oven like a TV dinner, just get the plate hot and maybe put it in like a broiler really quick. And that place was around, boy, for 20 years then. Oh, and it burned down twice. I think the second time it burned down, they're like, forget it. And they made their money, and that was it. They changed owners maybe once or twice. Well, it was weird. They had a parrot in a window that had been there for 20 years or something. I think I'd heard he didn't make it through one of the fires, which was sad. I know that that area was in the rent was really high, and that might have had something to do with it too. The fires, and I don't know. I don't think there were arson fires. It's an older building, but I couldn't even guess what the rent was. It was something ridiculous where they should have. But you know, in the Bay Area, it's like, I mean, in 20 years they could have perhaps found a restaurant that they could have bought, and they would have saved a hell of a lot of money not paying rent to some crooked landlord. Because I wouldn't be surprised, depending on size, anything on that street in that area was over 10 grand a month just to rent. But I don't know, they were probably making 3 grand a night at least, or more. So they had set aside a big chunk for rent. I just couldn't see doing it. I think my dad, all his offices, he always bought the land. He had land in Sunnyvale at one time that now I think is just a parking lot, or for a while there. And it was questionable whether he had actually sold it or not. But then I asked him, I thought, he said, no, we sold that a long time ago. But I'd found a deed going, boy, that would have been cool if he had forgotten to sell it or something, and we still owned a couple of acres in Sunnyvale, California. I'd be like, right on, we're rich again. But when he bought it, it's just like in the 60s. Stuff was reasonably priced then. Even till, it wasn't until the 80s things really started getting crazy with the prices of homes and properties there. And to believe it or not, there's plenty of land on the San Francisco Peninsula for building and expanding and whatever, but most of it's protected. You can't, like in the center of the peninsula, that's all protected. And you know, some of it's a good idea. Some of it's because it's our watershed, or where we got our water, or where they stored it. Because there's still, a lot of people don't know, there's still beautiful redwood forests on the peninsula if you know where you're to find them. It's not like they hide them, but they're off the beaten path. You'd have to know that they're there and then drive up that road or back road or even dirt road. And then there's people that live in, like, I don't know, like rural parts of the Bay Area, believe it or not. A lot of them, but most of them, not all of them, are like exclusive neighborhoods, but not all of them are. My third grade teacher had a ranch. I don't know how she afforded it. I can't remember how many acres it was. It was in the Bay Area, but it was along Skyline Boulevard, somewhere off of there. And boy, if she retired and didn't sell it, it's probably worth a small fortune. But she bought it in like the 70s. Remember, she took the class there because she had animals and a little farm, like a little ranch farm. So boy, at the end of the day at school, she had a lot of chores and stuff, things to take care of. And I don't think she had children. I don't remember her talk. I think she was married, but they didn't have children at the time. But you know what? When I was a little kid, I didn't realize how young some of my teachers actually were. She could have been not even in her in her mid 20s, and I thought she was old. Mrs. Turry. She's got to be long gone now by now, or very old. I was shocked that my sixth grade teacher was still working up till just before the pandemic. I assume she's retired. I bumped into her in Lake Tahoe one time. It was so nice to see her, and I reckon she didn't look much different, just a little older. And she was very nice. Remembered me too. But I don't know. She might be long gone. But I was shocked that one of my friends, she was a mom and had a son, and that went to the same elementary school we did. And she said, Mrs. Moore is still there. And I'm like, really? It's funny because that girl just discovered last year her husband was having an affair, and they just divorced. It was funny because one of my friends, a lady that's also divorced, she was saying that, this girl should start taking care of herself and blah, blah, blah. And it was funny. A year later, her husband found a young girlfriend, and I guess the son was in his senior year of high school, and I guess the plan was as soon as his son became an adult, he was going to divorce his wife. It's funny because she sold her home. They were living in her childhood home, which was it wasn't a mansion, but it was worth a small fortune. Who would ever want to move to Fresno? And, I don't want to disparage anyone who loves Fresno, but it has the only redeeming quality Fresno has is it's about a half an hour away from, that's probably, I don't know, it's close to Yosemite. And when you go up into the mountains from there, it's really nice. But Fresno, my God, it's dusty. I wouldn't say it's dirty, but a lot of gang problems. It's hot in the summer. So she went from paradise to moving closer to where his family lived. For some reason, I don't know if it was a sister or brother. I don't even know the whole story. And they lived there for like 3 or 4 years. And then he leaves his wife of whatever, 18, 19, 20 years for a younger woman. And now she's hardly ever on Facebook anymore. But she was looking. She'd got COVID once or twice. She'd gained quite a bit of weight. Something that sometimes moms do. And he, I guess, decided he wasn't in love anymore. And I wonder if he was younger. He looked younger than her. She just aged horribly. And I wasn't the one saying she needed a makeover or whatever, but one of her friends was mentioning, like, she needs to start taking care of herself. 'Cause she did not look the same as she did. And, people age. But she could have, maybe gotten a little more exercise, something. I still think he would have left her anyhow. And she was, like, totally head over heels in love with him up until she found out. That's kind of sad. I think it would be worse if they stuck together, but they weren't happy too. And to top it off, the story, I actually dated the girl in like 6th grade. a long time ago, or before she got married. Oh, we went on little dates like roller skating and whatever. I don't think it was the first girl I kissed, but maybe the second girl I kissed. I was still in love with that cheerleader that would the next year in seventh grade was a cheerleader, and that's why I went out for football. And I made it to the A team. I was on the B team for all but 2 or 3 days, and made it to the A team. And I don't know the win the B team. I think they just practiced. I don't think they ever actually had games or played. They didn't play the. Because we were the ones that were going out from school to school. I didn't particularly like that. I didn't like it on rainy days when we had to play football. I don't think I came home covered from head to toe with mud, but my shoes would be really muddy. I didn't get sacked that often. Every once in a great while I did. So then, yeah, days like that, I probably had a nice big mud stain on my shorts or something, or grass stains or whatever. I didn't particularly enjoy football as much as I enjoyed this cheerleader named Kelly, who I haven't seen forever. But I think she was probably, no, she wasn't even the first girl. The first girl I kissed was here in Utah. And I was like 11 and she was like 16. Boy, was she cute. These girls are all looking at me, filming. We'll maybe see them around the corner here. Oh, I like old Broncos like that one that just went by. So here we go. The two cuties. Don't walk on that broken glass over there. The girl behind is the bodyguard. So anyhow, I don't know what I was talking about. The old days. The old Western days when we were riding around in stagecoaches. Kissamacus Produce. I think I saw that they were hiring. There is not a lot of choices out there. If you're a restaurant and you need produce, you either got to go get it yourself or you got to get someone like that to deliver. There's only like Cisco, Nicholas Brothers, can't remember the other name, one like that. Where I grew up, there was so many choices, it was ridiculous. And most of them were sort of like mob-owned type deals. Yeah, why not end things instead of having an affair with someone or go to counseling? Yeah. Oh, what the weirdest thing, and I don't know, it's just a side note, he broke his hand or something. No. He tore a ligament in his arm. And they couldn't, and this is during the pandemic. And she kept showing, well, she showed a picture of it, but she kept talking about they couldn't get it fixed. And I'm going, what? And they were waiting for, and maybe this had something to do with it too. Let me plug in my phone before I even start this rambling. I don't know the whole story, but I know some of it. Hold on a sec. So the guys at work, I would have thought, I would have thought he'd own a construction company, but apparently he didn't. I don't know what his employment thing is. And maybe he kept working because he didn't want to stay at the house. And they had a pretty sizable, nice house with a pool, whatever. Almost like a big enough house where they both had their own, they could be on one side of the house and the other and maybe not even see each other. And it wasn't a mansion, but it was big. She showed some pictures. So anyhow, this guy goes to work, I guess, every day in construction. He gets hurt, but he's union. So maybe she met him, when she met him in the Bay Area, he was I don't know what type of construction is union, but whatever. I know about glaziers and, you know, oh, what do you call them? Sheet metal workers or whatever. But this guy, she just said construction. So he injures his arm, I guess tore a ligament, and it looked bad. It looked like a big knot in his arm. She showed a picture, but then after months go by, she kept saying how much pain the guy's in, and they were waiting for the union or workman's comp to pay for it. Can you imagine going months with a torn ligament in your arm, not being able to work? He was probably getting or whatever disability or something. But I just can't imagine going. I mean, one time I went a day or two with a broken or a fractured ankle, and that was bad enough. And I was by the time my mom came home from wherever, I'm drinking whiskey. And I don't even know if I was old enough. I mean, I was in my late teens, early 20s probably, but I'm just sitting there drinking Jack Daniels with my foot in a bucket. And she knew immediately what to do. She got me a appointment like that day to have somebody put my foot in a cast. And after that, it felt a hell of a lot better. But I can't imagine waiting months for a surgery when you have a torn ligament. He couldn't use his arm. And it wasn't much later after he got it fixed that he's dating someone else and gets caught, and it ended their marriage. But I wonder if it had something to do with that, because she should have, well, she's probably glad she didn't now, but she should have, because she wasn't poor, paid for the surgery or something. She was really a thrifty Scottish girl. But I wonder if that cost her marriage. Not like, because maybe he didn't have the money to. I wouldn't wait for an insurance company when it comes to something that important. And now it's probably long in the past. Hopefully he can still use his arm, but I just thought it was weird because I was gonna, I just was seeing what she was posting on Facebook. Like, I'd see her before she got married. I'd see her about once a year around Christmas. Because one of my friends dated her for a while. Then he just had this house where all these people we knew from high school would show up randomly, and so I'd see her roughly once a year, and I'd talk to her. But I would have said, "Don't. Why are you waiting months?" Because they weren't. It's like, and I don't know how much it costs to fix a ligament. Maybe in the Bay Area it costs $100,000. I don't know. But I just thought it was stupid and unfortunate that they had to wait. Because obviously he's in pain. He's in a bad mood. They probably had arguments over it, or I don't know. How do you comfort someone when you don't have opium or fentanyl or some sort of pain thing? And maybe he did have some, but what if he had a doctor that was like, oh no, we're going to just give you Aleve and aspirin or whatever for a torn. It looked bad. It looked like a big knot on his arm. And that would just be, if something like that happened to me, I'd say that's like the worst injury I'd ever had in my life. And pain constantly for months at a time. And I wonder if that had some part to play in it. I don't, maybe it didn't, but I'm pretty sure it didn't help. And her only explanation, I didn't question her much, but other people did in the comments, was they had to prove his case, they had to get it approved, blah blah blah. And I would think I wouldn't want to work for the union he was working for if they make him go 3-4 months without getting help. I mean, they seen plenty of doctors and specialists, but nobody was actually doing the surgery he needed. Hey, Jason. So between that and her not taking care of herself very well, but she was, a doting mother. I think she was a little bit overprotective of her son. She's always talking about he was getting bullied in school, and I couldn't imagine the bullies being any worse because I'd gone to that school, but the kids had changed. I didn't know who he went to school with, so she yanked him out of that school. They finally decided to move closer to his family, and within 5 years they were divorced. So she should have just stayed. Because now she can't go back home and buy her old house unless she was renting it. And I think the last thing, she hasn't been on Facebook much anymore. She posted that they went to Hawaii, the Big Island. And I've never been to the Big Island. It looks pretty, but I like Oahu as a stopping off point. And Oahu isn't as beautiful as maybe some of the other islands, or like Maui, but not all of Maui's beautiful. The Turtle Head part of it, it's all right, but what? Lahaina's gone. Kihei's okay. Kahului, I think that's where the airport is. I would say downtown Kahului is kind of, I wouldn't call it seedy, but it's, last time I was there, it wasn't like the nicest place I'd ever been. But when you get down to the Hana Highway, now that, along Hana, and then when you get to like Kipahulu, just before Kipahulu, I call it going under the canopy. Now you're under like trees, and I call it, it's really a jungle in my opinion. It gets pretty, you know, there's some really pretty waterfalls, and the road is tiny and windy. You got to be really careful. Real easy to have an accident and go off into the ocean and not survive, so you got to just drive carefully. I wouldn't recommend driving it at night or going like really slow. And I mean 25 or less. 25 is probably pushing it, especially around the corners. But I've driven it at night, driven it in the day. Probably will again. Although the funniest thing, I'm talking about Maui. I don't like Maui. I get tired of it. I got to keep the engine going because I don't have a battery bank. But Maui's worth going to. It's just, I'd say get away from the airport if they ever rebuild not Hana. It's the oldest seaport in the Pacific, Lahaina. But it'll never be the same. There's so much. They saved the banyan tree, and it's weird that some of the buildings survived, but a lot of stuff didn't. It was funny. They showed this one house where they had just remodeled it, and it was I don't know what you call it, an original like house on the beach. I don't know what you call it. It wasn't a pole house. There's a name for it. Put a lot of money into it, and you know they got lucky. The fire avoided the whole house, so everything else was burnt around it, and it was because the people put like rocks and stuff that didn't burn. They used a lot of decorative rock. I mean, sure, they had nice foliage of some sort, but not anything that was like tinder, you know. So they, and I wonder, I think their roof was blue too. But they lost a lot there. They lost, and all because some idiot, and I shouldn't even say idiot, some guy, a native guy, had some long ass story about water being sacred and water being, you know, the something of life, and he gave this whole, wasn't Native American, Native Hawaiian story about it, but he didn't flip a switch. He didn't open up a valve that could have helped put out a lot of that fire, because the fire departments are telling, I don't know who, we're out of water. And all they had to do was open up a gate. I didn't realize how the irrigation system in place in Maui has been there probably for over 100 years, but they even can divert rivers and whatever. It's generally canals, but some of the canals, you know, are fed by the rivers or whatever. We didn't spend a lot of time on any of that area. Oh, now that they're planning to use more sugar in sodas in the United States, hopefully they'll go back to growing some sugar cane. Unfortunately, some of those sugar cane fields, those huge ones I'd see as a little kid, there's golf courses and condos and homes. Not a lot, but, and I haven't been there in a long time. Let's just hope they haven't lost all that farmland, beautiful farmland they had, that was had irrigation. And I don't know when it was, but I watched some story on. It was interesting. It's almost like I'm surprised they don't have whitewater rafting or something like that in Maui. It's probably because the current isn't that swift, but I don't know. Don't want to be at the seven sacred pools when it's raining up at the volcano. I met a guy, a really nice guy. I remember his name, Eddie Pooh. It was it wasn't like Poo, but Pui or P. I don't know. And it's funny, nice guy. We're asking him questions. He was a U.S. Forest Service kid. At the time, we were about the same age or something. Maybe he was a little older than me. But I'm saying, I was reading in AAA magazine, Via or something, a couple years later that there was an accident there, and there's his name. And I go, oh my God, the guy we'd met at the bridge, who was just so helpful. And he was telling me the same thing, like, because I was telling him I want to go down in there. Every time I'd be near the seven sacred pools, at least when my mom, well, the first time when like my mom was there, she's like, "You're not going down there," because that's all I wanted to do. When I was like, I was 6 years old. But apparently, when it rains, the water comes just rushing down. It just flushes any tourists out. Unless you get out of there in the nick of time, people get flushed out of there a lot and wind up at sea drowning in the ocean. Or, they probably drown before they even hit the ocean because, the water's so swift. Now, that's somewhere they wouldn't do whitewater rafting. But it ties into the story. Like, when you're driving the Hana Highway, they won't tell you about all the crashes. And sometimes they have tourist vans, like filled with tourists, go right off the cliff. Maybe it makes the local news in Maui, but we don't necessarily always get the news here. Now, maybe a helicopter crash will get that. Even Bill Clinton, one time when I was there, we missed him by a few minutes. He was hiking along that area. And of course, he had Secret Service or whatever. But a lot of famous people seem to wind up in that area. It'd be interesting to bump into Oprah on Maui. But it's such a small island, too. I don't like seeing people twice a day. Because if you're going around in a circle, it doesn't matter if they're going counterclockwise or clockwise. You see them at breakfast, you guys take off in a different direction. You're always going to meet at some point. Unless, by chance you miss them. And that was kind of creepy, seeing people twice a day. Especially, and it wasn't just the... if it'd been, like, decent tourists or friendly tourists or something, or someone you wanted to see, if it'd been family and you bump into them twice a day, that's one of their friends or family, yeah, big deal. But I remember this one couple, I kept seeing them all the time, and then I think the second time this happened during a day, maybe a couple days later, I waved at the guy, and he sort of like covered his face a little, and I wasn't recording him or anything. I probably did have a camera with me, but I wasn't taking shots of him. But it was creepy. Because some people you just don't want to see again, and then boom, on that island or any smaller island, you'll bump into people. More than once. I know those, to me, well, at least this one couple, and they weren't bad people. They just, it took me a while to kind of figure out the physics of the whole thing, the logistics of it. It's like, oh, it's because we're all driving the same roads. It doesn't matter if we're going the same direction or the other. You're going to cross paths. If you, pay attention, you'll cross paths or see somebody like, oh, I just saw that guy, like, girl 4 hours ago. It depends, there's parts of the island you can go to that you won't see someone. But around that area, I don't know. It was getting it was creepy at times and boring at times. And what was the creepiest are really the natives. And then they're not all creepy, but some of the kids have the weirdest sense of humor. They like playing tricks on you or scaring you or perhaps ripping you off. Don't ever, I don't know. I remember being at a beach and just for a few minutes, I don't know what we're stopping for, probably to use a restroom or something at the beach. And these kids tried to sell me seaweed, and I didn't ask them for weed. They were like, "Hey, do you want to buy some weed?" And I didn't say yes or no, but I looked at it. It was just dried seaweed. So I guess where you want to actually buy it, at least then, at those days, those little stands along the road that sell flowers, they sell all kinds of flowers. And some of them, they can make you a nice ice cold drink or something, but if it says flowers, I finally realized that if you just said you want some Pakalolo, if they had it right then and there, they'd get you weed. I don't know what the status of marijuana is in Hawaiian Islands. I'm pretty sure they have it for medicinal use now, and hopefully they do recreational. It was funny when I left the last time, the taxi driver asked me if I had anything that I needed to get rid of, but he was talking about even shells, rocks, sand, whatever, weed. He'd take it or we could go put it somewhere. And I was like, no, I don't have anything to declare to the taxi driver. But they try to tell you too. It's more of probably a Hawaiian myth. You don't take anything off the island like rocks or sand or idol or little Peter Brady idols. But I think it's a myth. I think it's more because the state of Hawaii owns all the minerals, rocks, whatever. Another thing, don't move any rocks in Hawaii, especially near Hawaiian sites, or they will freak. And you could actually wind up with a major fine. They like to make little blessings with rocks or something. They wrap it in taro or a huge leaf, and they'll put it sometimes by the side of the road or in a little somewhere. They have like little shrines and stuff. And I could have seen when I was a little kid me being interested in finding out what the hell are these rocks. At least I knew by the time I was an adult, just don't mess with it. They do have petroglyphs there. If you look hard enough, they're usually on the ground. So it's sort of like, and this is not like in town, this is like in the jungle. You can look down at when you're in an area that you could tell. I mean, they almost look like, it wasn't like Raiders of the Lost Ark, but ancient, like the entrances to ancient temples or something, or a tourist would see, oh, that's a really old, I don't know what you'd call it, because there's no house there, but it looked like it was somewhere where someone had lived, and it's, rock-lined, rock fences, maybe an entrance that's has rocks on the ground, and if you look hard enough, and I hope I took a picture, but I want to go back to this one place again. But they were saying it was the King Kamehameha's tomb or something was nearby, and that, I don't know if it said something in Hawaiian, but it was, I don't know. There's like waypoints and markers, and it wasn't a lot of writing or anything, but I just call them ancient ruins and stuff. Anytime, though, I try to go hiking near the volcano, though, and a native was around, they'd tell me, don't go up there, it's sacred, blah, blah, blah. One guy said, oh, that they're growing weed up there and you're going to get yourself killed. I sort of believed it at the time. Now I'd be like, whatever. I did try to approach some greenhouses one time. The last minute, I can't remember what stopped me. I think I realized they're growing weed in the greenhouse, and weed was, it was illegal, so I didn't want to get caught up in their little scheme. I did notice these guys my age and older, younger and older, they're driving brand new Ford trucks, nicer than mine. And I didn't notice that these guys had regular jobs in town or anywhere. So they probably had a lot of extra money from selling weed to the tourist. So I kind of caught on to it between the stuff they would tell me. And there's this one guy too. I mean, my cousin knew a lot of families there, native families, and we had to deal with them at times. I remember they took us on a little Jeep ride, and we were on her property. And the dude was taking these corners, and the back wheels of the Jeep would come off the ground. And then at one point, we weren't on our side. And I know my dad and her had been in a accident the same way where they rolled a Jeep. And this guy just didn't seem to know what he was doing. I knew that if just say the left rear tire and I'm in the back comes off the ground, to get my weight of myself on that back tire area to get it to the Jeep to sit down. And I almost was telling him, like, slow down, dude. I was almost about ready to tell him, I'll walk from here, because we weren't that freaking far from the main road. But I kept thinking he was trying to kill us or he was being very reckless, or my cousin, but because she was his landlord. So if she dies, that was it. He owns the whole property. So I was like, hell if I'm ever getting in that guy's Jeep ever again. It'd be funny now to meet him, and we're both old. He was older than me, so he'd be really old. And I'd still tell him, I ain't getting in your Jeep. I should have wrote down some of these people's names, because I might have to deal with them again. There's one family that I'd seen from the time I was 6 till maybe to my 30s. They'd have to be passed on, but I'd have to deal with their kids who I didn't pay attention to at the time, or their grandkids. It was funny because when I first saw them in the 70s, they were living like, it looked like a big tough shed. Second time I saw them in the 80s or whatever, they'd put nice windows, insulated windows, they had nicer roof, still a shack, but maybe they'd added on to it. And the third time I saw them, they'd almost made their shack look like a house. And they did have some beautiful flowers in the front. It looked nicer. It looked like their living conditions, because my mom would always treat them like they were Native American Indians or something. Well, not necessarily treat them, but I don't know. And I'm not saying she was racist or anything. It was just, by the time I saw them, they actually started looking not affluent, but they were in a better situation for one reason or another. And they lived on property that they owned part of it, and my cousin owned part of it. It was a mess. You don't want to buy any land in Hawaii unless it's been quiet titled and everybody's been paid off, because you could buy land and find out that a native owns even the 1% of it, and then they have the run of the whole property. So if you even buy a house or build a house in Hawaii and a native owns a part of it, theoretically they could walk into your house, sit down, and you really can't tell them to leave. I mean that sounds ridiculous, but I think that's how it works. So they would own 1% of that house, and you couldn't tell them to go. I mean, maybe you still have controlling interests. You could still sell it. But I thought, that's a ridiculous thing. But it's called tenants in common, and I don't know if they have that in the mainland. But in Hawaii, they have it. I think here in Utah, they had something close to it. It's where Brigham Young deeded out all the land to the few settlers that were here. And as more settlers came, more settlers were deeded land. But some of them, like if you own a ranch or something, they could come to you and say, oh, we were granted like water rights, or maybe they own the land but they never sold the water rights, and they come and claim your water or something. They won't generally claim your land, but they'll say and then they have to look back at the records 150 years and see if there's a document on file that says they sold and if they can't, it winds up in court for years here. Some of the oldest court cases are water related, and they've had water wars out here where people have actually died over water rights. Maybe not so much here in town, but out in the desert, water is very scarce, and if Brigham Young deeded it to your great-great-great-great-great-great-grandfather or grandma, and they never signed off, there's been disputes, recent ones, over little important things like water. I wish I traveled more. There's this ghost town that reminds me was a ghost town, and they had, I don't know, I should walk up from it a little more. I have on the other side of the mountain. It's pretty interesting. But it was like a canal, but rock lined. It was narrow. Not. It wasn't even wide enough that you could put a inner tube in it. But some of the freshest water from a wilderness area where there's, you can't, where there's no vehicles, you can only hike or maybe perhaps horseback ride on that mountain. I can't remember the name. I know the range, but I can't remember the name of that mountain per se is. But summer, winter, fall, spring, you can go, say, south of the ghost town, which there's not much of the ghost town left. There's this rancher that stole everything, everything right down to the foundations, and he used the materials to build part of his ranch. Well, he was also using their, and this is smart. He probably has permission, I'd assume, with the water. He was using that water, running it to his ranch, and it looked like water I would actually drink right from the canal, and it was rock lined. It was made, you could tell, a master mason or someone who really knew how to arrange rocks, and I guess there's mortar and some, but the little seams or where the rocks, like how they're laid, is perfect. I mean, it's probably wasn't much mortar used, and it'd be a cool place, like if you were going to build a house, to get a portion of that water for the house. But I doubt anybody who owns rights to it would ever part with it. And I don't know if the rancher's just using it. I don't think it's that easy to just use some water from across the road or from a ghost town. But he was able to steal all the stuff from the ghost town. He took everything, pretty much. Anything building material, probably a lot of rocks. So all you can see now is the foundation. And it's the youngest ghost town we have, because in the 1950s it was actually an operating town, and that's when they closed down. It's where the Mormons put all the Polynesians. For some reason, they didn't want them in town, so they put them, 50, 60, 70 miles out of town. And they were lonely out there. A lot of them longed to go back to Hawaii. That's weird. There is a Mormon connection to Hawaii and here, which kind of blew my mind. I finally figured it out in the 90s, because there's BYU Hawaii. So I guess the Hawaiians, they had a lot of encroachment from government, from missionaries, and not just Mormon missionaries, Christian missionaries, whatever, Baldwin family, blah, blah, blah. Doles. I think the Doles were missionaries too. Dole, pineapple, Dole, whatever, sugar. I don't know if they did sugar, but I know they did pineapples. But a lot of those families have pulled out, like Dole. I think the Dole plantation on Oahu, it was more like a museum, but they still had plantations out there. I don't think it'd be hard to get those things up and running again, as long as they haven't sold off all the land. Reno town. No. Reno was kind of fun in the 80s. I know when the mob was still running Vegas and Reno, they would sort of, the myth was that it was safe, but I wouldn't say Reno's safe. What's nice about Reno is up the hill, up the mountain from there is Lake Tahoe. So it's a good jumping off point, but someone very close to me died in Reno, so I have sort of mixed emotions of Reno. Do I know my way around Reno? Sorta. I don't like downtown Reno. I know where to get good food there. The hospital, the best hospital, like if you get hurt in Lake Tahoe, I mean seriously hurt, they run you down to, or fly you down to Reno, the Washoe Hospital. There's a really cool surplus store, I think it's called Twin Cities, that I like to stop by. But the surplus store was a lot cooler when I was a kid. Now some of it's just junk from China, it's not all surplus. You can find good food there. If I was going to live in Reno, and it's really not Reno, It's near Reno. The Mount Rose Highway that comes out of Mount Rose and Incline Village comes down through and that's another hell of a road. It's a hell of a road to get in an accident in, but it's pretty, and it sort of comes in south. When you get down off the mountain, you're about south of Reno. It might parts of it might end in Reno, but I can't remember the name other than the Mount Rose Highway. Along there is pretty, but all those houses, shit, 20 years ago, the cheapest house was probably close to $1 million. So good luck even finding a buildable lot there. But that's pretty, and I remember when that whole area burned out, or most of it did. It's already now, what, 40, 50 years later. It looks good again. Oh, of course, most of the old growth trees are gone. And then on the other side of Reno, the same thing. But that was a Boy Scout or no, I think it was a Boy Scout, and he was lighting fireworks up there, and he burned out a area where the trees never returned, and he got $1 million fine. I don't think he ever paid it off, but who knows? That'd be interesting to research. But I've looked all around that area, and yeah, if you don't lay down $1 million, I mean, for $500,000, you might get a dump fixer-upper in a shitty part of town like Sparks. Out by Pyramid Lake, for a while there, they had some larger houses on larger properties that were fairly reasonable priced, but that was a while ago. So I wouldn't say there's anything around there that's... I mean, if you find something's reasonably priced, it's in a shitty neighborhood where you're going to beat up, robbed, or just be miserable for the rest of your life. I wouldn't move to Reno unless I could afford Mount Rose Highway area, and then I'd stick to going up to the lake and back, and then only go into Reno to go to Costco or whatever. There's another town called Genoa. Same thing, $1 million homes. And they don't look like mansions, but they're expensive. Cute little town. Garnerville is kind of nice. I know a guy that bought a ranch there, but again, he probably paid just under $1 million, and I'm sure it's worth over that. That's where he's retiring. The East Carson River is a really nice place to... it's a nice river. The road to... what's it called? It's another ghost town. Bodie, California. You go up through Monitor Pass. It's a hell of a drive. I've only been on parts of it, and I've never been to Bodie. I probably should. It's one of the best preserved ghost towns in California. It's owned by the state. But getting to it, better... I wouldn't take your car, or even mine. I'd be a little bit... Maybe the Honda could make it, but I'd be worried. It's one of the most vertical... Monitor Pass is one of the most vertical... the elevation is so steep. It's like not a place where you'd want your brakes to go out. But it's pretty. It's really nice. Hello again, Bianca. You keep it up with those northerners. They need to be put in their place and become good, productive members of society. Someday. Sunday. So I don't know, yeah, I should look again about your Reno. No, Reno, I mean, stop there and go get food maybe and fuel. But yeah, you could have if you're in a bad neighborhood, you get your car broke into. I liked eating at, what's it called? Jim Boy's. But Jim Boy's isn't as good as it was when I was a kid. They had really good tacos and stuff. I would eat there if I couldn't think of anywhere to eat, and it's edible, but it's not really. When they started making franchises and building more of them, their quality went down. But I remember that's where I used to stop to get some food, some tacos or whatever, and it was edible. It was better Mexican food than we got here, for the most part. Like fast food Mexican. It's better than Taco Bell. Taco smell. But let's see if I have any more Reno. Oh, if you ever get towards Reno or Tahoe area, I mean, I'd spend most of your time in Tahoe. You could stay in Reno maybe to save a little money, and then it's about a half an hour drive if there's not traffic from any of the roads that go up there. But Virginia City is worth going to. And just for a day trip, I wouldn't stay out there. And then I think it's called Dayton. There's a town called Dayton, but it's kind of out in the desert, but it's near um, Virginia City. They had affordable housing there, but come on, you're in the desert and it's hot. But as you get closer to Reno, and Reno also, in the afternoons, they have these winds that come down the Sierra that can, like, basically sandblast your car or your house. So don't be on the downside of that mountain in the afternoon and park your Lamborghini anywhere where it can be sandblasted. And it wouldn't be like paint completely falls off, but you'll ruin your paint job. People have to deal with the winds in the afternoon that come off there. And I don't know if it's seasonal or it can happen anytime. I'd say it could happen just anytime you got that certain type of weather pattern of whatever it's called. North of Reno is where they have, what's it called, Burning Man. And I heard someone talking about Burning Man like they had been there. Like, whatever. They used to just burn everything at the end. That's where they put all their stuff. Now I don't know they allow them to burn everything. And I've seen people leaving, going and coming and going from there. I've driven by it, but not when it was Burning Man. I've driven by that playa. And I have no reason to stay in the middle of the desert in an RV or anywhere in that area with a bunch of people on acid and God knows what, and naked people walking around. I think I would have enjoyed that maybe in my 20s, and then on top of it, pay $3,000, $4,000 to go. I don't think I'd have fun. And then last year, everybody got stuck. But I've heard people that never even been to California or even never even been by there trying to explain what Burning Man is. They don't know. They don't know anything more than I do, other than I've been by there, and it's somewhere I wouldn't want to go camping. Now, west of where Burning Man is a place called, can't remember, it's the name of a famous hunter from the 1800s, Becksworth Pass. That's where if somebody wants to enter California, like just say a trucker that's overloaded or has maybe a cargo that maybe shouldn't be taken, they'd take Becksworth Pass. But I wouldn't recommend an 18-wheeler to do it. But it's a way to avoid the agricultural inspection spot if you want to. But it's a hell of a pass. But it's pretty up there, and you can go up, I can't remember, it's Sierraville, or I'd have to have a map out. But we used to go like hunting for hot springs. And I actually found one. So my friend's going, I don't think it's here. I go up to it looked like a roof, like corrugated steel or whatever, roof from an old barn or something. I lift it up, and there's this little mud puddle. And I saw this can that's turned upside down. I pulled it out, and there was like a little pipe or something. I don't know why anyone would run a pipe down there. But in order for us, if we would have sat in that hot spring, we had to dig out the mud puddle, let it fill up with hot water, and I just wasn't into it. I did find a really cool mason jar that was purple that I took home, and I still have it somewhere. We do weird shit when we were kids, go driving along those areas, go on logging roads, find old mines. I do have some really cool rose quartz that I put it outside. You don't put rose quartz out on your balcony or in the sunlight, because it changes it from pink, it starts going white again. But I rescued, after I found out what I was doing was not a good idea, I rescued it. I'd love to put that in a tumbler, but they're The pieces are bigger than like a football. But it'd be cool to tumble it to round or smooth and then maybe sell it to those people that collect that shit. And it was right in front of a mine, but I don't. My friend thought that they were mining rose quartz. I'm like, they're not mining rose quartz. They just left this behind. They're probably looking for gold or silver, something valuable, for God's sakes. Rose quartz, I don't know. The little tiny rose quartz, the size of a marble, that'll fit in your hand, are probably $1 or $2. I don't know. Maybe that's 1980s prices, but cheap. But I wonder what one the size of a basketball would be worth. So we'd go do stuff like that. I'm surprised he didn't demand I give him one of them. But I don't know. Oh, I think I was driving my own vehicle that day. Hell of a place though to go get lost though, or in those days we didn't have cell phones. It'd be a hell of a place to break down, and then you could send somebody, if you bump into somebody, say, well, when you get to town, please call a tow truck for us. Well, luckily we didn't. I remember I had just bought a brand new pair of Ray-Bans, and this is when Ray-Bans weren't very expensive at all. This was another time we were up there, and I put them on top of my friend's truck for some reason. I didn't have a little leash on them or whatever. And then I get in the car, and then I realize, oh shit, I'd left the sunglasses on top of the car. And I was telling him, let's go back. And I can't remember if we did or not, but I lost a good pair of Ray-Bans up in the middle of nowhere there. Another town, I can't remember, I talked to somebody recently, I think it was at work, and they were mentioning the town of Verdi. They thought that was a nice town. And that's just before you get into, as you're descending into the, I don't know if it's the Washoe Valley or Reno area. There's a town called Verdi that I'd say it's kind of nice. But still, in order to get groceries and whatever, you're going to have to go into Reno to get them. Verdi, there's apparently an Indian reservation somewhere. It's probably very small. So I remember one of the smoke shops I went to in Verdi. Verdi, it means green. It was an Indian smoke shop, but I didn't know where I assume it was on Indian land, but sometimes Indian land is a very small parcel. And sometimes the Indians don't even live on it, but there's a reservation smoke shop where the cigarettes were, at the time, reasonably priced. I could get a carton for $20 there, versus across the street they'd have been $30, $40, something like that. I generally always stop and get gas there. Well, not always, more times than more than not, that's where I stop to get gas. There's a place near there. And then up from Verdi, there's another town. Can't remember the name of it, but again, I already checked it out. All the houses, $1 million plus. So, been nice to inherit one. But I'm not dropping $1 million unless I, unless I win the lottery, and I'm planning on it. I'm not going to be moving to any of these places, but it'd be nice to be able to afford that. But you gotta, if you buy $1 million house, you still gotta have $1 million in the bank, or $500,000. But it depends. If you're like 40 years old, you gotta have a hell of a lot more than $1 million in the bank, or a hell of a good job to afford that type of lifestyle. Just unfortunate that California, parts of Nevada, and now even here, houses here, nice houses are about $700,000 here. What's weird is I'm noticing the newer houses, every room has a bathroom. So I guess they're expecting people to want to have roommates, or every kid gets their own bathroom, or everybody that lives with you has their own. I wouldn't want to live in a 4-bedroom house and have to clean 4 bathrooms, or God forbid, 5-bedroom house, and you got a bathroom, and a full bathroom in every room, and then you maybe have a half bathroom somewhere. I'd be spending my whole week or at least twice a month, a whole day or two cleaning bathrooms. I think the house I grew up in had 2 bathrooms, master, and then one that was shared or whatever with the other, because it was 4 bedroom and only 2 bathrooms. But one thing I don't recommend is never buy a place, unless it's a studio apartment or size, don't buy a place with 1 bathroom. If you don't like waiting in line in the bathroom, if somebody's there and you gotta go, and you're going, come on, hurry up. That's why I don't want to have any, where I live right now. I mean, I had a roommate once, and boy, that was a nightmare. I hated waiting for the dude to take a shit and stink up my bathroom, or I don't know, he'd take these long showers, and I'd wake up and go to pee. I'm surprised I didn't go in the kitchen and pee right in the sink or something, or get a pee cup or something. Thank God he was only there for like 2 months, and to this day I still remember what a nightmare it was. And it's not like I've had a girlfriend live there with me off and on over the years, and that didn't bother me. But just having a roommate or someone that you can't just walk in the bathroom and use it. And my bathroom has, if you're in the toilet area, the bathtub area, you can shut. There's a door you can shut. But I don't know. I didn't want to ever see that dude naked. Thank God never did. Still don't want to see that guy naked. I haven't talked to him in about 5 years, but I don't know. There's some people you went to high school with that were funny and goofy in high school, and then when they grow up and they're still funny and goofy, it's not funny anymore. Or it's not as hilarious. I should read some of the chat. Dayton, when I think of Dayton, Washington, or Dayton. No, there's a Dayton, I guess it'd be Nevada. Why, it's not probably a bad town, and although a lot of people probably are, at this point, are miners, or maybe people that work for government. I've been towards Fallon, too. I wouldn't want to live out there either. Although Fallon's a fairly big town. But I wouldn't want to live out there. I mean, I guess I could, but then I'd be commuting to Reno, which, as you know, I don't have a big... I don't think much of Reno now. When I was a kid, it was kind of cool to go to Reno. We'd go to movies there, because I don't know that there was a movie theater in Lake Tahoe when we lived in Incline Village. We'd just get on the Mount Rose Highway and come down. It'd take half an hour or whatever, but there was a really cool, big theater. I remember seeing Paper Moon there and a few other movies. It was always a nice treat to go see a movie, because we didn't have, up in Tahoe years ago, and even now, they don't have television stations. So we had cable. I don't know about in the 60s, but in the 70s, we had cable. Because if you didn't have cable, you didn't have TV. So maybe places like Tahoe were the first towns that had cable, because if not, you were going to be listening to the radio, I guess, and no TV at all. But I remember times when we didn't have cable, all I was getting was snow. Nothing. You couldn't even pick up a Reno station. We were too deep in the forest, and the mountains surrounding us were blocked out any television signals. AM radio, yeah, you could easily pick it up. I didn't spend a lot of time watching TV. When I was in Tahoe as a kid, first thing I'd do once I'd eat breakfast is get out, go hiking, go into town, whatever. I didn't generally go to the lake by myself. My mom would take me. Remember the first time I saw a naked woman sunbathing was in Lake Tahoe, and she didn't freak out. I was so young, she didn't freak out when I came by. She didn't even cover herself up. My mom was more like, and I don't know if my mom was aware of it or not. I think at some point she became aware. She was just kind of shuffling me away from there. I might have told her or something. I don't know. Yeah, I paid $400 for a really nice one here, and it'd be interesting to go back and find out what they are now. I could just call them. But $400, It was about, it could have been $395, $385, but it was about $400 a month plus utilities. But the place was, I'd call it sound resistant. They said it was soundproof. So I could crank up the music pretty loud. The only way people would hear any of the noise would maybe be through the windows, but the windows were double paned. I do remember one night I could hear somebody, and I was thinking, if this place is soundproof and I'm hearing my neighbor, that something was going on. It sounded like he was getting his ass kicked or kicking somebody's ass. I could just hear it faintly. But it was nice at midnight, be able to crank up the Van Halen, or I did have a keyboard, and I used to play it at a fairly loud, everything I did when I was 18, 19 years old was loud. My car was loud, but music, I'd listen to it a little bit louder or a lot louder than I do now. It was nice. And then huge pool, jacuzzi, open 24 hours, both heated. I can't remember. I don't think we had an exercise room, but I didn't care. That age, I didn't need any exercise. We had a huge, it's probably the biggest laundry room I'd ever seen, with so many washers and dryers. It was funny because I used to just put it in one washer or dryer, and it'd still take me a while till I realized, I could just run 2 loads and dry 2 loads, and quickly found out ways to speed up the whole thing. But that's what I generally, when I was doing laundry, I'd go sit in the jacuzzi, crack open a beer or whatever. Only thing that sucked about that place is it didn't have covered parking, or it had covered parking, it didn't have garages. And then a couple years later, I moved. I actually lived there twice. Moved out, went to California, came back, moved. Didn't know anywhere else I wanted to live. It was familiar to me, so I moved in there. And that's when my dad and I decided to find another place that had a garage, that maybe where I wasn't paying, because it wasn't $400 a month anymore. It's probably $500 by the time I came back. What sort of lured me in there, other than it was brand new, so I was the first one to ever move into the first place, was the management was really nice. It was this girl and her sister were managing it, and the sister, she was always coming on to me. I should have gone out on a date with her, but I didn't. Because the second time I moved in, I had a girlfriend, so that's why I didn't date the manager's sister. She was cute though. I can't remember the first time I moved there. Oh, another thing that was cool is there was a lot of people that worked for Delta, lived there for some reason or another. I wonder if it's because it was a straight shot to the airport close by, but it was a lot of stewardesses, so I'd be sitting in the jacuzzi at night. And there were some fairly attractive women at the time, young, attractive, about my age, so I was in hog heaven. It's turned out that road now, that area now, it's not a shitty neighborhood, but it's not the greatest. So there's a straight shot to a city about a mile away that's not a very good city. And occasionally, I remember one night, some girl was pounding on my door, begging me to let her in. I finally, being a 19, 20-year-old, opened the door. And I think I did have a telephone at that point. Or maybe, no, I don't think I did. She needed to call someone because she had been dumped out of a car. And again, even if Turtle says she was a prostitute, I don't think so. But she was on a bad date of some sort, or met up with someone bad that threw her out of the car or dumped her out. It wasn't in the middle of nowhere, but it was a dark road, kind of a little bit out of town. There's a lot of new apartments there, and that's about it. But now, I would say I'd never move back to that area again because of the weird shit that would happen. That was the only thing that happened when I lived there, but now it's like, I don't know, there's meth apartments where people get busted for meth. it was the plan for that whole area was something nice, but over time, those apartments have gotten older and things have happened. A lot of homeless people. A lot, because I didn't even realize I was along a river. That time, no homeless people were living there, but for a while, even recently, a lot of homeless people camping by that river. I wouldn't live there anymore. Just wouldn't. And just because of the hassle, I don't want people knocking on my door begging me to call the cops or whatever. I think what I did, I gave that lady a ride somewhere. Because I don't think well, at least the first time I lived there, I didn't have a phone. I used the phone at school. And sometimes I'd go to there was a hospital nearby. I'd go use their payphone. Oh, and they had a courtesy phone too for local calls. And at school, same thing. Could make a local call for free. So I went a year or more without a phone. And this was before anybody had, well, most people didn't have personal computers. I guess they had the first Apple computer that was about $1,500, $2,000, and I didn't buy one. Still doing stuff by hand. It's like my reports for school. I finally realized when I came back that I had to either get a typewriter or, and typewriters are on the way out. I had to get a computer. And I had realized I should have taken what they call keyboarding, but they called it typewriting in high school. Just like it was funny in those typing classes, it was like 95% women and maybe a couple of guys. Even when I took typing in college, I did it at a community college because I didn't want to do it at the university. I don't think they even offered it at the university. But it was just me and one guy, and it was all girls. Which was weird because now nobody thinks of typing as a girl thing or secretary thing. And my mom knew how to type. My sister knew how to type. I didn't know how to type. I did the hunt and peck for the first 6 months I had a computer, and then I realized it's time to learn how to type. It really did speed things up. And at that point, I didn't think anything about it being a woman's hobby or skill. It's funny how we were raised years ago, and it's funny how people are raised now too. They'll look back and go, "Wow, that's really weird. What are all these tattoos doing all over my face? What is this bone hanging out of my nose? And this whatever. These rings I have in my earlobe." It's so funny because a lot of this stuff is tribal. And sometimes I'll see guys my age with holes they shouldn't have. Or their earlobes hanging down towards their shoulders. Going, nice look, bro. Enjoy it. Enjoy it for the rest of your life. I've heard there's nothing you can do plastic surgery wise to correct the earlobe, golf ball, whatever the hell they put the disc in the earlobe, or the lobe thing, which it might look cool when you're young, but when you're older, people like me sort of laugh at you, going, wow, you got drunk in Mexico and you woke up with tattoos on your face and discs in your ears. I saw a girl recently, last summer when I got ice cream, and she had the tattoos on the face, and she might have been 18, but she looked more like 15, 16. And here, you got to have permission to get tattoos if you're under 18. And I found myself not necessarily staring at or trying not to stare at her. How about that one? So I was just going, wow. And then she had a girlfriend who must have really liked that look. But I don't know, I shouldn't be so judgmental. I just thought, boy, I'm glad I don't have a daughter that scribbled all over her face and poked holes in her earlobes. You know, a few tattoos is fine, but when you have something that says like fuck life on your face, it's kind of weird. It's kind of like a red flag. I happen to think that I'd probably meet up with someone in a mental hospital that have tattoos like that on their face. And I wouldn't probably question them. How in the hell did you get that drunk to do that? Or they must have been in a mood one day. I think some of my friends that got tattooed, they got like drunk one night. Can't remember, they were on vacation. I think they were just getting drunk at home, and they decide they all want to get tattoos. And all three of them, the Three Stooges, went down to wherever, got tattoos. And I think one of them doesn't regret it at all, but I remember some of them just 5, 10 years later, you couldn't even tell what the tattoo was. It was all, I don't know if it was done wrong. I don't know if they have better ink now. This one guy had a panther on his arm. You couldn't even tell. It just looked like a black, whatever, blob. And all of them said something like, well, we're going to get them redone like 10 years later. And I don't know that any of them done that. I wouldn't be surprised one or two of them might have had them removed. I don't know. I don't think so, though. The one guy, it just every time he takes off his shirt, you just see this big blotch of ink. And they're probably thrilled they didn't do more tattoos because they look like shit 5, 10 years later. But I don't know. Maybe they got better ink now. Maybe they do it deeper or something, or have improved the whole It's just funny how now almost everybody, the younger generation, younger than me, has them. I see older women with them too. I mean, and it's one thing when you have a few tattoos, but I even see police officers, female ones, with a sleeve, or from their wrist all the way up their arm. Boy, in the olden days, I think they wouldn't allow cops to have tattoos like that, but now they'd have a hard time hiring anybody because a lot of people have them. When I worked at Long's, you had to cover them up. So this one girl would always come in with, looked like her arm was broken or something. She was all wrapped up in gauze and stuff. And finally one day she just unwrapped it and showed me all these tattoos she had. And they wouldn't hire her unless she covered them up. Which, I don't know if that's fair or not. I don't know if they even enforce that much anymore. Because again, it's like trendy now to have tattoos, where when I was a kid, women could get tattoos. There was no law against it, but most of them didn't. And I've told this story before. There was one girl I saw where actually her tattoos looked pretty cool. She had this 50s look. She did her hair like from the 50s. She wore 50s clothing. And she had a few tasteful tattoos that were really cool. I wish I could have taken a picture of it. Because she was attractive. Tattoos looked great. It wasn't the sleeve. And, because the tattoos, the ones that look like you got them in prison, aren't attractive at all. That green color, a little bit of other than green color, like the ones that look like art, I'd say aren't too bad at all. It just depends. And I've seen people too that had it head to toe, but their body was like a canvas, and they had someone, wherever, somehow located the best tattoo artist they possibly could, and they looked okay. And I've seen some tribal stuff too that wasn't just one color. It was an Indian, Native American Indian, and he had them all the way up to his neck, but they were kind of light and tribal, like intricate designs, and it looked it worked for him. It was cool. Something that I think as he got older, he's not going to regret it, because it was art. It wasn't just some guy scribbling on it. And they must have planned it out. I don't think it just started as... I should have asked him, but I only talked to him for about 5-10 minutes. He had just been shot at. He's trying to get me to call the police. Eventually did, but I didn't have time to ask him about his tattoos. Because they were cool. Now, he would have been like a guy that, been in a magazine to... Because some people have such tattoos that it's, artistic. And there is... I remember one of my friends had a magazine that was just people tattooed, showing off their tattoos. And, some of them are actually quite intricate and attractive, but some people I see here, they've gone to the wrong tattoo artist. Or like the people that try to do their own tattoos. Or like the ghetto tattoo artists. I knew some people in a small town, they'd go to this one lady that was like, I would never let her touch me with a needle. She wasn't, that great. She could maybe do a Tweety bird or something, but have her do something tribal on you, she'd probably lose track of, or screw it all up, basically. And that would suck, to get a tattoo and somebody screws it up. I've heard of that happening too. Because you can't really easily reverse it. I mean, you can. Some removing tattoos can be very expensive. I knew a guy that did a vine all the way down his leg. And I remember the day he showed up and he's kind of showing it off. And I was like, okay. I mean, it was a nice looking vine, I guess, but he meets a girl the next month that's 100% Molly Mormon. And he kept, and that was weird, because when you meet a girl, I don't know, within a month, I don't think of marrying them, but they were talking about, maybe this was 2 months later or so, getting married, but he was going to have the tattoo removed. It's like, as long as you don't wear shorts, and you're not going to wear shorts at your wedding, I don't think. How would the parents know about his tattoo? It'd only be if he was wearing shorts. And he found out he went to a doctor to find out how much it would cost. $30,000 to get rid of that tattoo. And the tattoo, I don't know what it cost him, a couple $100, but $30,000 to remove it. And this was a long time ago. $30,000. And because it went all the way down his leg, and it was huge. It looked like George of the Jungle tattoo, green. I don't know what inspired him to do something like that. My goddaughter has a tattoo that goes from below her armpit all the way down, I think past her hip, onto her leg. Can't remember what it was, but I remember her father being horrified. It was actually, I think it was a flower, but it was huge. And it's funny because I'm friends with her on Facebook. She never shows it off. You never see it. And I don't think he was joking with me when he sent me a picture. He goes, look what so-and-so put on her body. And it wasn't a bad one. It was just huge. She said, wow, that's going to cost $60,000 to remove if she ever wants. I don't think she's had it removed. And he kept thinking she just did it to upset him. I don't think that had anything to do with it. She probably knew it was going to. Her mom's never said anything about it. In fact, someday when I do talk to her, I'll ask her, what'd you think when your daughter got the tattoo going halfway down? It was on her side. So like maybe when she's wearing a bikini or something, it looks like she has a huge orchid or something going from about her hip, or maybe lower hip, or I don't know if you call it bikini line, up side of her rib cage up till maybe her elbow, or a little higher than that. I don't know. I've only seen it in a picture. I'd never ask her, show me your tattoo. But it's just the younger generation. They think it's attractive. And I'm just saying, I've seen some that are attractive. I've seen some that aren't. You might have said that are not that are art, but that aren't attractive. But same thing with people. Not everybody's cute and attractive, and same with tattoos. Not all tattoos look great, depending where you get them. The little tattoo under the eye with a little dot or something, that's not attractive. I see that whether it's on a guy or a woman. I probably try to steer clear. Remember one time I went into 7-Eleven and there was a guy having an argument with the cashier. And when I first walked in, he wasn't really arguing with her. And then I'm standing sort of close to him. And then he turns around and man, his whole face is covered in tattoos like cartoons and shit. And then he starts arguing with her. And I thought there was going to be a fight or something going on. I backed up a little bit. Because I don't know why some of those people are a little intimidating to me. I think like, well, maybe they're crazy or maybe they're in a gang or whatever. But you know, a lot of it's stereotypes and maybe the way, not necessarily the way I was raised, but how I grew up. I know I used to put the phony transfer tattoos on me when I was a preteen or prior to 15 years old, 12, 13. One time one looked fairly real and my mom was hoping it wasn't real because I think in those days I actually could go down to a tattoo parlor and they didn't have any laws. So if you had the money, they weren't going to ask you how old you are, or they might ask if you had your parents' permission, but they didn't have to have it. But they had these vinyl ones that were kind of cool. And come on, by the time I was maybe 14, I wasn't interested in even putting those on me. But as a kid, it was like Kiss Army. They'd have little tattoos and shit. Not that I was part of their Kiss Army, but I got a hold of a few of those. It was more like 6th grade, 7th grade type shit, maybe 8th grade, but by 9th grade, there was no way I was going to put a fake tattoo on my arm because it just looks cheap. I even had a hard time writing on my skin too. But some people did. Or like getting like a marker. You know what I think it was? Prior to my generation, ink was poisonous. Not the stuff they used for tattoos, but some of it was. You could get ink poisoning. There was such a thing called ink poisoning. So I grew up in the tail end of that era where people were like, don't even write on yourself because you could get ink poisoning. Not all ink was like organic or was made of shit that could get you really sick. So I grew up at the tail end of, yeah, you don't want to write on your arm or whatever. And maybe it was the ink they were using when they were using quill pens. I think by the time I was even a little kid, most ink wasn't, but you didn't know. You know, you'd have to read the bottle or, you know, on a pen, they didn't put the ingredients of what the ink was. So you stayed, or you like magic marker or something that could actually get in your bloodstream or something. So that was my story and I'm sticking to it. I always thought it was would be funny to get a tattoo of my name, social security number, and address, like a ID, put on my inside my lip like they do to dogs. Because some dogs, I don't know if it's police dogs or whatever, they have their like identification numbers. They usually tattoo it inside their mouth or inside their lip. I don't know if they still do that now. Then they might use chips. I don't know. But I know some animals have tattoos for identification. I thought it'd be cool to have my identification tattooed inside. God, this phone will not charge for one reason or another. And I guess before I end this live, and I could go live on the other phone, I hope somebody likes and well, it's not the likes, it's subscribes. I got 8 likes, that's good. But I need to I'd like to reach 500 sometime before the end of the summer. It'd be cool if it happened tonight. I'm close enough. I suspect I've gotten a few because I've had, I don't know, up to 20 or 30 people listening. More people were watching though when the accident started or happened. Or We were watching them tow those cars. Yep, I had a little bit of iced coffee, as you probably can tell. I can squeeze in twice as many words per minute when I'm on caffeine. A couple hours earlier, I took a freaking nap. I was tired. And for no reason at all. And I thought, oh, maybe I need to start drinking coffee. I don't know. Do that right from the get-go so I don't get tired. Yeah, I wonder who the first dummy was. They probably used natural inks, like tribal or natives. Yeah, they don't. I've only seen a few people where and I don't really check out everybody's tattoo, but I've noticed a few in my lifetime. A few, and I mean less than a handful of people. Well, other than the people that are in magazines and stuff, that's really art. But the average ones are like these police, sometimes police, women. There were cops, and it's not always women that are cops. I wonder what the whole thing on getting tattoos and being a cop. Some rite of passage. I know that in the Navy, when you'd cross the equator, almost all of the guys would get, and maybe girls too, would get a tattoo. But it usually said the name of your ship that you were on and the date or something. That was like a rite of passage. I would love to cross the equator someday. I've never done that. But I'm not going to get a frickin' tattoo to commemorate it. And it was the era I grew up in and what was born in, that it was only guys really that got tattoos. And I'm not saying that's 100% correct. It's just a woman having a tattoo in the 60s or 70s, maybe it was a hippie, or I don't know. Or maybe it was just, it'd be like, I don't know if any of you guys know the show Leave It to Beaver or whatever. It'd be like June Cleaver getting a tattoo and showing it to Ward and going, look at the tattoo I got today. That's just not going to happen. Or Richie Cunningham's mom, Marion, getting a tattoo. I guess. I don't know. It'd be more like, and even Joni getting a tattoo. There's certain, like if you're in a biker gang or your boyfriend was a motorcycle rider or in a gang or something, maybe to impress him, you'd get something. But a lot of the girls that I knew that got tattoos, I don't know, I wouldn't say high school, but college, it'd be something simple like a Tweety bird or a heart or a little flower on their ankle or something. They try to conceal it for the most. Now people aren't concealing it. But I think the sleeve looks so ugly, I'd be like, you'd think your skin would suffer if you have it completely covered in ink. A McWhopper. God, I hate Burger King. Burger King had some good food when I was a kid, but now they don't. We don't have good Burger Kings here. Our Sonics here suck too. And I've been to Sonics that have good food, but not here. But Burger King's really lost it. And I'm not saying I haven't eaten there. A couple of years ago, I was eating there. I'd get some coupon for $1 off or whatever, and it was one of those things that just depend on who's working and who made it. I don't really like mayonnaise on my hamburger too much. But I know, like, the traditional Whopper that they made when I was a kid that was flame broiled, right there, right there in the kitchen, or as you order it, those were good. Just good luck finding them in that same quality. It just depends, because when they throw stuff together really quickly and they really don't care how they make it, sometimes they screw it up, or they put too much mayonnaise, or they don't put enough lettuce, or whatever. Or it's like, I don't know, I think those patties are already pre-flame broiled and they just put it through some machine that heats it up. So anytime you're getting a hamburger from them, it's not fresh. It's already been cooked a long time ago. I don't know how. Well, even their onion rings seem so. There's a difference between their onion rings and say you go to an old burger bar where they have a machine that makes them right there. There's a place that's called, I guess, Burger Bar, but we used to call it Ben's. It was on that show, Guy Fieri show. He even stopped there. They have a machine that dredges or whatever they get the onion, cut it up, dredge them in whatever batter, and then drop them in the fryer. And it's a messy process, but boy, those taste excellent. Versus, say, Burger King that just drops frozen, pre-made onion rings into a fryer. There's not much to it. And I could see why they want to speed up the process and everything, but then they lose quality in the whole process. I'd rather pay twice as much for homemade or properly made onion rings. I'd pay twice as much than to eat the shitty. I mean, how could we as Americans, or even North Americans, whatever, anywhere, put up with this shit for convenience, to have something in 5 minutes versus you got to wait another 5 or 10 minutes for something quality? And the shitty fast food that we are presented with is not cheap anymore either. Gone is the dollar menu a long time ago. It's just weird. I mean, don't we all get it that corporate America does not care about us? They just care about being able to pay their CEO $200 million a year and reward their shareholders with perhaps a stock that hasn't tanked. That's all they care about. They might care about I don't even think they care about the product. It depends. Well, the food, no, not so much. Just that it's edible. That's it. And I'm not saying all companies don't care about their products, but they don't care about us. So why should we dump our hard-earned money into their bank accounts? And then if you can find quality, it's not going to be cheap anymore. Where I found stuff that was reasonably priced over my lifetime, but not lately. Yeah, you go to a thrift store, maybe, but not Goodwill. Even Goodwill tries to rip people off. And none of that money goes to help anybody, as far as I know. Maybe they hire people that have a hard time getting jobs, but it's not a company. I mean, and it's probably a company that's probably tax exempt, but I don't know. But they're for profit, I think. I'm pretty sure. No, they're for profit, so how could they be tax exempt? But Goodwill, there's nothing good about Goodwill unless you find something great there. I hardly ever go in there. The last few times I did go in there, I'm like, holy crap. And it's true. Their nice stuff is auctioned off. And I believe the person who owns Goodwill, he decides where the money goes. It probably goes to, and I don't think they have shareholders, but who knows? It'd be family or something. I don't know. I'd have to look into it again. But years ago, I looked into Goodwill, and there's nothing Goodwill about Goodwill. Yeah, hires people to sit outside and beg. Yeah, cats are cool pets. There was this guy I was watching today, and his cat had actually had kittens, so he had kittens running all over the house. And he had said he had just gotten back from vacationing, but somebody had to take care of those cats while he was gone. I'd like to have a pet again right now, but I don't want to not be able to travel. As soon as I have something like an RV, sure, you can bring a dog or a cat on an RV. But until then, I used to travel around with my cat. Boy, the first 20, 30 times we went anywhere or whatever, she'd scream the whole time. Sometimes I'd crank up my stereo just to drown out the meowing, and she'd just meow louder. So I learned later, just like, okay, just wait till she settles down. And then, the last 10 times we traveled, she was fine. One time she got a little sick or something, like she started panting really bad, and she hardly ever did. She looked like she was sweating too, and cats don't sweat. She was like drooling and shit. And I had to turn around and go back. But by that time, she was getting old. And I didn't even realize it. All my mom's cats lived like 20 years, 17, 18, 19, 20 years. My cat did not. And I don't know what I could have done to make her live longer. I think it would have been avoid traditional cat food and not necessarily feed her food scraps or human food, but maybe prepare something. Or like just straight chicken or I don't know, liver and whatever, and just have it bland and not raw foods. They're saying that cats, at least in the wild, they don't, they eat raw meat. So there's a debate on whether that's, that would be kind of time consuming, but I do know people that feed their dogs and cats food that they prepare, and it's not necessarily food they would eat because it maybe has less salt or, and I'm surprised, like, I don't know a lot about dogs, the stuff you can feed dogs. I didn't know, like, a dog could eat an apple. And then I know, don't give them chocolate. My cat liked beer. One time I caught her drinking beer. And then I decided to keep beer away from her because she would have become a freaking alcoholic. She liked beer. I don't know what it was about the beer. I remember the first time I drank beer, I thought, ooh. It had an unusual taste. And I didn't really like it, though. It took me a while to learn to like certain beers, and other beers I didn't like. And she liked corn, too. I remember one time my mom said, did you take a bite out of my corn? And I'm like, no. And she had left it out, and it was apparently the cat jumped up on the counter and took a few bites out of the corn. And we decided it was my cat. And it's funny because she always had food, had kibble around or something. We fed her. I don't know. I fed her at least once a day, sometimes twice. Depend on whether she was hungry or not. Maybe when she was young, and then when she was in the prime of her life, she'd eat twice. Maybe when she got older, it was just once. Always had fresh water for her. But she didn't live long. And she lived more than 10 years, but not 20. And it was probably a good thing, but boy, was that rough the day she died. And then I've heard of some people that had dogs, and they're like, this is the last one they're going to have. This is the last time they're going to go through the pain of losing a pet. Because, at some point, it's like they're part of your family. My cat was, like, feral. So the first couple of years, I had a hard time dealing with it. She was like a wild cat. It took a long time to tame her. But eventually it happened. I probably should have given my cat catnip more often, just so she could enjoy it. When I found out she liked beer, I should have substituted catnip. I should have grown some out when we were living in California for a while. Should have grown some outdoors. I think my mom did at one time, but not for her. But the few times I gave her catnip here, it wasn't fresh, so it didn't get the whole effect. Like, we had cats when I was a kid that, boy, you'd give them catnip and they're acting like they're drunk and they're sliding their faces all over the floor or something weird, or just, I don't know, just acting really funny. Yeah, I don't know, the next cat has got to be as protective as the last cat, but the wild part of it, for a while there, it's not that I didn't like her, I was just thinking she was too much of a handful. I found 3 cats, found homes for 2 of them, and this one I knew nobody was going to take her. She'd bite me, she'd bite anybody, but it wasn't really hard bites. As she got older, when she bit you, though, she meant business. She'd like to bite strangers. And then she bit my mom one time, and boy, she actually tore into my mom, and my mom handled it. She was probably a little upset for a minute or two, and then when she showed it to me, I'm like going, oh my God, my cat attacked my mom, and my mom was great with cats. But I think even the same day, she goes, if you'd work with her, she could do tricks. She's so smart. She could do tricks. She could do what. I never taught her any tricks she knew. She learned on her own. And she was entertaining, though. I'd have to tell people, don't touch her or don't pet her, and then walk away. So that was weird. You start petting her, she's acting all nice, and then you stop petting her and walk away, boom, she'd attack you. She had a weird personality. And I assumed her and her brothers were sort of abused, because, yeah, they were just abandoned out by a farm here. And I found them during a winter snowstorm. And I don't know who would abandon kittens in the winter time, but I rescued them. I wish I could have kept all three. Actually, the other two, her brothers, were actually more well behaved. She would have to fight in order to get, because I'd put down food for them, and then, maybe when they were kittens, I'd put it just in a big bowl, and boy, would they fight over it. It would have been interesting to record some of it. But I remember one time she'd grabbed both her brothers, one paw on the head, and with her claws out, grabbed their heads and held them away from the bowl just to eat. And that's when I realized, and it was cute and sad at the same time, that I had to feed her separately. So the other two would eat out of a bowl without really fighting, but when she got around there, they'd all start growling and fighting. And I just thought it was funny. I'd never seen a cat use both paws to hold back two other cats, and then she was gripping their head with her claws. And they weren't thrilled over it. Oh, and then another thing, I remember the first few weeks they lived at my place, I'd shut my bedroom door so they wouldn't come in there and wake me up or jump on the bed or whatever, and she wouldn't have it. She always had to sit by that door and meow or claw at it. So eventually I had to start leaving the door open. And then I finally trained her to not bother me, but it worked for the most part. Then she had her little pillow near my bed and it was funny because she gravitated there because it was right under a lamp. She liked that lamp. So I put her pillow there and she'd go right up to there. What I noticed too, anytime I did laundry, I had to keep the laundry basket away from her because she'd like to jump in the laundry basket. Anything black too, like I had black pants or a black shirt, she would gravitate to dark colored stuff, and especially when it was freshly laundered. And I was like, great, because sometimes I'd just wash my clothes and didn't want cat hair on it, and boom, I'd have to hide the stuff from her. Oh yeah, she was great. I just never came up with a permanent name for her, so she just went by Kitty. My mom tried to name her 2 or 3 different names, and none of them stuck. But yeah, she was great, and she was protective too. Anytime any but stranger came by, or like the gardener came, she'd be in the window well growling at him, acting all fierce, maybe even her hair standing up. And she'd alert me to stuff that I wasn't aware of. I mean, her senses were so much better than mine, and her reflexes were too. It was hard. I finally, thank God I was fairly young, because sometimes I could catch her once in a while, but sometimes it was just luck. A lot of good times. I swear to God, we went to California so many times. I think the last few times she could have navigated, but she didn't like traveling. And I got a picture of her looking at me. It's like I'd get out of the car to fill up or go to a restaurant or whatever, and I'd leave her in the car. Never in the summertime or when it was really hot. And she's like standing up on the steering wheel, And it almost looks like she's driving. And I got a couple of cool pictures of her, and those in Truckee, California. But I swear, like, if she would have got lost along the way, she seems like the type of pet that would have at least attempted and probably and maybe successfully made it. It would have been hard for her to get to California because she would have had to cross a few bridges. I don't know how she would have navigated that, but she could have probably made it back home here. It would have been a hard, hell of a hike, but I bet she would have tried. She seemed like the type, because there's these weird stories of people losing their pets when they're moving or whatever, or they lose them back home and they move somewhere and the pet somehow and maybe they're urban legends, but she seemed to know the route. Just getting to California, maybe she would have stopped along the way, because we'd always stop at a friend's house along the way, maybe stop there, and then they would have called and say, you know, your cat showed up here. And I guess before I end the live, I'll end the story about one time. I mean, sometimes when we were traveling, I knew she didn't like being cooped up in the car, and we were at this, like, it wasn't like I was camping, but it was up near a campsite, up near a reservoir. And I thought, what the hell? I'll let her out and romp around here. So I let her out of the car, and it was dumb, because you know what? She could have been attacked by whatever, anything. Swooped up by a eagle. But I thought, okay, you know, she was old enough. I was right there, so I thought, she's fairly safe. And I wasn't going to let her take off. Oh, and this is one thing I also noticed. If I would whistle, sometimes she'd come to, like, when we'd be somewhere unfamiliar, or even like at my mom's house, I could whistle or something, and she'd come running like a dog occasionally. So I thought I'd test this theory out. So I let her out of the car. But the first thing she did was roll around in this dirt. And this is up in the Sierras, and the dirt might have some pine sap in it or whatever. So later, it took days. I mean, I had to wash her after that. But she camouflaged herself. So all of a sudden, I'm looking for her. I couldn't find her. Finally, when I discovered her, she was only about 20, 30 feet away, but sort of crouched down, and she was the color of the ground. And she just thought it was the funniest thing, because I'm calling for her, and she's right there, and it wasn't like she was laughing, but you could tell she was amused by it. I couldn't see her, because she had blended in with the surroundings. And then again, and then when we went to my friend's house, he for sure wasn't going to let her in the house. But I finally got like a warm, wet towel, wiped her down a few times, but it still took a couple of days or more. I didn't want her to have to clean herself up herself. And then I never did that again, at least in that area, because the dirt was, I don't know, an unusual color, brown color, but it was sort of sappy, you know, or it was, it didn't clean well. And I just felt bad going, oh my God, if she had to clean herself, it'd take months. So I helped her out a little bit, and then I never did it again. She blended in with the scenery really too well. And she wasn't completely white, but she had enough white in her that anything white was the color of the dirt. And then she had the perfect camo, and I could tell when she was sort of like amused by something. Like the time a raccoon came in the house, and I looked at her, and she looked at me, and she gave me this look like, this is your job to take care of, not mine. Oh yeah, the day she died, she woke me up about half an hour before, and I pet her, but then I went back to sleep, and then when I woke up, I noticed her struggling. And I was just so sad. But to kind of honor her being a really good pet and kind of like a member of the family, I I buried her properly. In California, you can't bury your pets in your backyard if you live in town. You're supposed to buy them a plot. It's kind of ridiculous. But we had a big yard. Every cat we had when we had that house was buried in we had a little area behind a fence where our cats were buried. And she loved California. She didn't like Utah. She was from here. She loved California. She loved the weather there. She didn't like the fleas there, but we dealt with them. But I found a wine box. I don't know how I found it so quickly. I was going to buy a Orchard Supply box that was really nice, but then I found a wine box with hinges on it. Got lucky that day. And I placed her in it. And then I didn't bury her that day, but the next day or whatever, I started digging in the backyard. And I decided I was going to do it right and go deep. Because the other animals were in shallow graves. Basically, anybody could go there with a shovel and hit their um, grave site. But I went down to deeper than my knees, and I hit a clay layer, and that's when I decided to stop. I was young, so I could have gone another foot into clay, but I put it down in there, and then I decided, because I knew we were going to sell the house, and I knew what I was doing was illegal, not a felony, but whatever. No I don't even think you could get a permit to, if you do it, if you own a house in California, you bury your animal in there, you just do it and you don't advertise it, I guess. I don't know anyone who's been cited, but I properly buried her like not six, but about, well, not 5, 3 to 4 feet down, hit a clay layer, laid it in there properly, and then I got 300 pounds of quick set cement, poured that over it, and then when it dried, I wrote her name in the cement, and then I covered it all, and then I put rocks and all sorts of stuff. I did mark the area, but I noticed when the house was for sale that somebody or the realtor took the little cross or whatever down, but I put rocks in that area, and I knew it was an area of the yard that was unbuildable. Nobody was going to be up there with a bulldozer or what, because it would take, at this point, like a bulldozer or something. I don't know how anyone, it was could have been 400, because each bag was 50 pounds, and I don't know, I got maybe 6 bags of them, something like that. Poured it down there. So with the clay layer, the cement, nobody is going to disturb that site. And I was like heartbroken. It was bad enough losing my mom a year before, and then losing the cat there. But I realized, she loved my mom. She loved that house. She loved that backyard. I don't know. She loved the weather. She didn't like snow at all, but she didn't even mind rain. Yeah, I think it's nothing. But at the time, I thought, that sucks. And nobody was going to stop me I wasn't going to take her somewhere she'd never been before and put her in a pet cemetery. So I buried her in the yard with, I don't know, 3 or 4 other cats we had over the years. The other cats, probably, they're great. In fact, I might have disturbed some of their graves, because I know one of them my mom buried, she had the neighbor come and help her. We had a couple of nice neighbors over the years, and this one guy he probably dug a proper grave. But sometimes I'd be redoing because I was like, why put him in a pathway where we're walking over the top of him? Where I put her was behind a retaining wall, behind a fence, behind a retaining wall, and somewhere that there's no way anyone's going to build anything. They might, I think if anything, they could get a permit to make a stairway on that hill, but they probably wouldn't put it there, perhaps. And it's deep enough. Come on, a stairway, they're not going to. I don't even think you can get a permit to put a deck out there. I loved that property, too. And I also realized there's no way. It's weird when you grow up somewhere and then you sell it, whether it's for a good amount of money or not, and then realize you could never move back there. And it's not because someone else owns it. I can't afford that freaking neighborhood. I mean, I hope someday I could, but I'm getting up there where, unless I win the lottery in the next couple of years. And then, you know what? I don't think I'd want the same house again, because it was on a kind of a busy street right off of a beautiful freeway, if there is such a thing. It's a nice freeway. But I didn't like that as I got older, there was a lot of traffic on our street was like, I can't remember, it was faster than 25, but it was on a hill. Maybe the speed limit was 35, but people would be flying down it doing 60 miles an hour sometimes. I remember at night, the funniest, because most people would run the stop signs, and they probably should have stop lights, but it was a residential area that had a freeway exit and entrance, but sometimes people come down, and especially at night, a lot of people run the red light, the not the red light, the stop sign near our house. So every once in a while, I'd be in my car at night, just whatever, listening to the radio or whatever, and I'd hit the brakes, so they'd see my brakes, and I got some cars to like slam on their brakes or think, oh God, they knew they were about to break the law, and I don't, they didn't think I was a cop, but for some reason that tapping my brakes would sometimes get people to stop at that stop sign. And I didn't do it too often, but every once in a while. I should have showed my friends at night, like, check this out. I can get this guy to go sideways here. Because they'd be moving, and it's just hard to stop on a steep hill. It's near San Francisco, but not San Francisco. 30 miles away in the hills, but steep hills. Especially in the rain, too. God, I'm glad I didn't get anybody into a wreck, but I would sometimes I do some funny stuff to keep myself entertained. But I do miss my old home for some reason. I do realize without my mom there, or family there, or a reason to be there, it's just not the same. So I don't even know why I would go back to that same neighborhood and spend a fortune trying to, and you know what, I'd probably want the same style house, but away from the busy road, same neighborhood, but some street that's like less traveled. And I don't know, it'd probably freak me out now. Be going like, is this a dream? Am I imagining I'm back home again? And it's just not the same it's not the same without the family, and even some of the neighbors that were cool. And there was quirky ones too. But not all of them are gone, but most of them. And I'm not saying gone, but most of them moved away. So I'd be stuck in a predominantly Asian neighborhood with people that don't necessarily know me or care about me in the least. We did have one new neighbor that at least we talked, which was nice. And then there's a few old neighbors that are now long gone. It was just weird. So I've got to find that new place to call home, or I'm stuck here. And God, I would hate to live where I've been living all these years, off and on, forever. That would suck. Because then I would think, maybe I should have been a little more selective. The place I live isn't bad, and I haven't overstayed my welcome. Because I don't live with anyone. It's just, I feel like it's time to move on. More adventures somewhere else. And do it before I'm so old that, because I know the area here. I don't get lost here. But I'd hate to move somewhere like I did here and have to learn the whole area and where the freeway is and where to go shop again and the shortcuts that I know or to get lost. Sometimes on the other side of the valley here, I've gotten turned around at night and I'm going the wrong direction home. It's only happened once, but there's been other times I have to, and thank God for these phones, because now I can look and pinpoint exactly where I am and go, oh shit, I was going the wrong direction. So one time after a concert, and I hadn't been drinking, I just got on a road I'd never been on, and I didn't pay attention, and I finally realized after about 10 minutes that I was going away from town. And that was 15 years ago, and I wouldn't say I was old then. I'm just going, what the hell's going on with me? But, sometimes in places where you're unfamiliar, you can get lost. And I remember taking a survival class and the teacher saying, every once in a while when you're hiking, look back just to see what it looks like when you're coming back the other direction, because you can get lost if you don't know where you are, or you start going the wrong direction. He was saying always look back every once in a while. Hard to do if you're in the jungle or something, or deep in a forest. That technique might not work so well. And then you might want to mark where you're hiking to get back. Same thing like when you're in a cave or a mine. Sometimes people use paint to put arrows, as some people use twine or string. That's just in caving. It's lately, what the hell's YouTube suggesting I watch these cave accidents where people get stuck? It's so weird that people, I mean, I can see people that like to do that. I get claustrophobic in real tight areas, but they show these ones where people like swimming in a cave or something, scuba diving, and they get to a dead end and get stuck in there. And it's weird that they send people in there to rescue someone. I mean, here in Utah, you get stuck in a cave or something and it's too dangerous from the rescuers. You're there for the rest of your, until the end of time. Nutty Putty Cave, if somebody looks that one up, there's a guy, and they've closed the cave. It used to be one where Boy Scouts went there, blah, 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 hikers, whatever. You can't get in there because there's a dude stuck in there that they couldn't get him out. And good for them to tell the rescuers, don't risk your life trying to pull out some dummy, well, some unfortunate dummy that got stuck there. Nobody's going to tell me to go in there and rescue that guy and he's dead. Yeah, and then YouTube suggesting these lately. The next time they suggest it, because I don't think I'm subscribed, I'm going to just keep putting not interested, not interested. Because the worst nightmare is something like that. I mean, it's not going to happen to me now, but it could have happened to me years ago. And not necessarily a cave, but I used to go into abandoned mines. And it'd be something more like a slip and fall. I noticed false floors or parts like where they just cover stuff up with a piece of wood that's not nailed down, that you could easily just slip and fall and go 100 feet down a chute and you're not going to be alive. I almost drove into one time and it would have swallowed up my truck. I'd never seen a piece of plywood that big. But I bet now, since it's near Park City, they've remediated or fixed that area because it was on a road. And you had to go around and it was a huge, I don't know if you call it an adit, but just like a huge hole that could have, my whole Bronco would have gone, because I looked under it after I passed, and I didn't drive over it. I almost did. I don't think that piece of plywood would have held my truck. I was like, thank God I didn't drive over it. And I was with my girlfriend at the time. I would have got us both severely injured or worse. And thank God they are, in some places that are more touristy now, they're sealing up that stuff. Because in the old days, which wasn't that long ago, you could really get yourself hurt wandering around, especially at night. That would have been one like at nighttime, like, oh my God, easily fall in. I bet animals were falling in there. And I learned these lessons, thank God, by almost, getting myself into trouble. But being, sometimes a little bit of fear or apprehension can save your life. And maybe a little bit of know-how, and listening to some of these people that tell you, be careful when you do this or that, or when you go out in the desert, always bring extra water, provisions, whatever. I mean, I think anywhere you are in the world, always have something in your trunk, like a blanket. You don't necessarily have to have water, but can't hurt. I know when I cleaned out my mom's car one time, I found a can of water. And it just said U.S. something. I don't know if it came with the car or what, but it still had water in it. And I don't know if she put it in there or it came with the car, but she had a can of water, at least enough to maybe survive another day if you're stuck in the middle of nowhere. Some of the saddest things I hear is that, like, people, like, they say that, like, there was a couple, it wasn't too long ago, they wanted to see wild horses out. I don't think it was in Utah, but I think it was in Nevada. It was close by. So they buy a brand new RV. They go out there, they see the wild horses or whatever they wanted to see. And then the guy got the thing stuck. I don't think they ran out of fuel, but they got it stuck. And they're off out in the outback, what I'd call it, or, way out, way off the main road, way off on a lot of these roads out here. Some of them are already disappearing now, but the U.S. Geological Survey made some of these roads because they were looking for minerals and whatever, mapping things out. Maybe it was during World War II, some of it, maybe even World War I. And so there's trails out there. Some of them are historic trails, like the what do you call it? The Pony Express. Now that one's still being used, not by Pony Express, but then there's these offshoot roads off there that you drive out of there and nobody knows you're out there, and especially in the wintertime, nobody's going to come looking for you unless you're missing. And it's funny, long story short on the story, the man goes out hiking to try to find the main road and come back to rescue his wife. He doesn't make it. And eventually they did find her alive, but, out of water, out of food. And then she had to go back home without her husband, and what a horrible RV story. So I even know if I go out somewhere like that with an RV, I'd probably want to have a motorcycle or bicycle or something, like some other type of vehicle on the bumper. So because I'll maybe I'm alone, maybe I'm not. Oh, look at this guy, no lights. Oh, he finally turned them on. I'd want some backup, or even how about a radio, and not like, because you'll get in these areas that don't have cell service, but a CB radio, perhaps one that's tuned for long distance, or a ham radio, something. You might be able to reach someone. Like ham radio might be difficult, but CB radio, if you're even within 20 miles of a major freeway, you could probably contact a trucker. Wow, rope from leaves. Yeah, I don't even know how to do that. Probably could do it with hemp though. With the stems from a marijuana plant, especially the main shaft or something, I would know how to sort of braid it into some sort of rope that could hold my weight, but I'd need a hell of a lot of them. Probably take me a week. I'd probably starve to death making the rope. But I live in an area and traveled in areas where you don't want to get stuck. When you're on Highway 80, fine, someone's going to drive by within a few minutes or an hour or whatever if it's during a snowstorm. But you get off the main road a little ways, and maybe there's not a farm nearby or whatever. I've been in Montana where I didn't see anybody for an hour. All I would do is see maybe a ranch or two, but they were spread far apart. So if you broke down in between that, you didn't have a cell phone, I guess I would recommend, unless it's like you're freezing to death or I don't think it gets way too hot out there. The best thing to do is sit in your car and put the hood up if you're on a main road, but that's not going to work out in the middle of nowhere. And out here, even tonight, in 30 minutes, I could find out in the middle of nowhere, or close enough where at least no one's going to know. Maybe they'll notice me in the morning or something, but and the further you drive, like out into Nevada, and get off on a dirt road, unless it's a road to somebody's ranch, you could be stuck out there for quite a long time. Good news is most of the Nevada near the highways, you'll have cell service. Just when it's 110 degrees out there, I don't know. You got to have some skills and hopefully some extra water. Summer, you're not going to need a blanket. But in the wintertime, perhaps. Occasionally we get really extreme summers, temperatures, not this year, thank God, and extreme winter conditions too. There in 1948, way before I was born, we had so much snow here that it would have been almost as high as that building, or at least halfway up or more. So much snow that the cows in their pasture were able to walk right over the fences and get out. And I don't know, they somehow figured out to got the snow off the main roads, but there were some people that were buried for most of the winter, and people that didn't make it. I just don't want to be here on one of those winters where, and I don't know, maybe they were messing with the weather even in the 1940s. They probably were. Because after World War II, they wanted to use weather manipulation as a weapon to other countries, and they were testing it out on us. So I wouldn't be surprised. That's not a natural occurrence. They were probably seeding the clouds. I don't know. Only the CIA or FBI, no, CIA would have records of how, if they had done that. Because we sure as hell had Army depots here, Air Force bases and whatever, and they're probably toying around. They weren't doing it to make it a nicer skiing experience here, even though they did have ski resorts then. They did it in Tahoe, and they admitted it. At least they admitted it, and then they supposedly quit doing that. Because I remember one year, like 82, we went up there, and there was like 20 feet of snow on each side of the road, and it's just really weird driving down in a chute-like thing, and it's kind of not necessarily hypnotizing, but and even if the road's like clear, which it wasn't, I don't know. It's not like it's if you have to do it for hours and hours and hours at a time, it wears you out. You know, all you see is white. Even if it's nighttime, it's like blinding. That's how it was here too. The in between towns and city was taken up by farms, and then those farmers' kids, they had no incentive to continue the farms unless they had had some product that was just in high demand of some sort to continue the farming, and then they'd get these offers from developers like, yeah, we'll give you $2 million for your farm, and if it was an only child or something, they're like, or perhaps a bunch of brothers and sisters, and they could convince them that we can split, $3 million between three of us. There's only one farm that I see now. I might be missing another, but where there was not hundreds of them, but a lot. Along Interstate 15 now, between here and where my dad lives, I only see one in Layton. That still you can tell is a farm. I don't know that they're doing anything. It looked like just alfalfa now. Nothing you can eat. Wow. Yeah, where I grew up, I only saw snow twice. But we'd go up to like the Mount Sierras and we'd go skiing. But in where I grew up, twice. And then one of the times, I can't remember, I think it snowed at the beach, which was rare, but I sort of missed it. A lot of times by noon, it's gone. But I remember one time when I was a kid, yeah, it was slipping and sliding all the way to school. We lived on a hill, so when it snows, I mean, if it had been my choice, I would have, like, if I had kids and it happened, I would have said, you're not going to school today, it's a snow day. And I'm going, what's a snow day? It's when it snows. Even where places where it doesn't. But I think it snowed one other time when I was back there, and they were recording snow at the ocean level, like Pacifica, but it didn't stick. The other time it stuck and then it burned off or melted off by, I'd say noon, or by the afternoon you couldn't see any snow for sure. Because it was just barely cold enough to snow. It was just that right timing. And then there was another time in the 60s where I wasn't born, where some of the kids, I guess, were finding pictures of them playing in the snow in the Bay Area, and that's just a rare event. On Mount Diablo and some of the mountains nearby, yeah, it would snow, and sometimes people would drive up to these actually small mountains just to experience snow for the first time or whatever, or take their kids. Yeah, I didn't realize sledding is actually dangerous. I don't really know of anybody personally that died tubing or sledding or whatever, but I heard stories. There was this one place where the kids would go when I was younger, and they closed it down because some kid, I don't know, crashed on a tube. Can't remember if he hit something stationary or whatever. I can't remember the story, but I was, thankfully I was told, but this is about the time I wasn't interested in doing it anymore. I had a car. Hold on a sec. But I didn't, and no, people that like lost all their teeth. That would suck. Especially if they were your adult teeth, permanent teeth. But it'd even suck if it was baby teeth. And yeah, when I was a kid, you didn't wear a helmet or take any preventative stuff, but as I got older, kids were starting to be smarter and wear something that looked like a bicycle helmet to avoid tragedy. I didn't do a lot of sledding. I did snowmobiling when I was way too young. And it was fun, but when was driving, when somebody else was driving, oh my God, it wasn't fun at all. Especially when they're going too fast. I didn't realize snowmobiles some of them can do freeway speeds or 80 miles an hour if they're high performance. My cousin had one that was way too fast. And he took me for a little ride for a few minutes, and I was like, hell if I was ever getting back on his snowmobile again. It was so fast and bumpy, I couldn't really see very well. Everything was like blurry, and I had great eyesight. It was just, he was going too fast. And I was like, damn, and he was probably trying to impress me or scare me or something. I never got on his snowmobile. And that was probably, I think that was the last time I went snowmobiling. Now, had he said, here, go ahead, it's your turn to drive or whatever, and not with him on it, I probably would have got myself hurt or something, gone up. That's another thing, when you're on the back country, snowmobile's a great thing to touch off an avalanche. And you know, I'd heard of avalanches when I was a little kid, but finally, thankfully, before I started seriously skiing here, I was taught about avalanches and avalanche control. It's really important here. Almost every year there's an avalanche. I mean, a lot of them are controlled and purposely touched off, but people get killed here all the time. I guess even in Lake Tahoe occasionally, but I'd never heard of it. I'm glad somebody covered that, because I used to do backcountry skiing before I ever thought about, what if I touch off an avalanche? And I don't think I ever have. But those are some really cool videos when you see someone touching off an avalanche. And, you know, they're a professional skier and they outrun the avalanche. That's not always how it winds up. And they do a lot of avalanche control here. I don't know about California. And that's where I learned how to ski. I don't like the conditions for skiing in the Sierras. It's not powdery snow, and if you don't get up there right when it's snowing, falling on Sierra cement, which is basically frozen snow, can be painful. Wind, yeah, blurry. Yeah, I used to ride a downhill board. And I should have videotaped. I should have actually grabbed a video camcorder and filmed a little bit of it because people had been a little surprised at what I was doing. And I don't know, maybe in Southern California where the skating was a little different, there's some kids that go down certain canyons. I'll see some stuff now where people, they have their GoPro and I'm going, wow. And I miss those old days of going down like a mountain basically and you're moving. And these kids sometimes when they take a corner, they'll touch the ground or the hand will touch. And I don't know if they use it, I guess they're just doing it for balance because it's not slowing them down. Yeah, and I have a little bit of road rash. There's one that I've got that I can still sort of see where I got injured. And then I had it on my forearm, but I don't really see it. It's not like a thick scar. The one on my hip, though, I can still sort of see where I crashed. I didn't crash that often, thank God. Or it would ended my little hobby earlier. My last big wipeout was just before I got my first car. And after that, it's funny I didn't keep the skateboard in the trunk. I should have. And I still got it somewhere. But am I going to ever ride it again? I might, but I'm going to just be very careful. I don't think I'd wear the knee pads and elbow pads, but I probably would put on a bicycle helmet or something. But sometimes people when they're older and they do stuff that they did when they were younger and they regret it. Hose water, 3rd-degree burns from hose water. I know like sometimes we would let it run first, like when the hose was sitting out in the sun. But yeah, somebody had turned that on or you had turned the spigot on like on a 80, 90 degree, well, probably have to be more than that. Or just say even 100-degree day and the water actually in the hose is 140 or something. I remember drinking too quick before it was cold and oh, that was always nasty. I'd like to get a longboard, and then now people have these ones that are electric too, but I know I'd get myself same thing when I saw these people with scooters and I saw a kid riding in traffic on one. I'm sure I'd get myself killed on one of those or seriously injured, and it maybe not the first time, but if I was using it regularly, because you have these accidents. Same when I was learning how to ride a bike. I guess I could say I've crashed bicycles, not that often, but I have. Oh yeah, and then now I don't know that kids drink off the hose. I know when I found out the traditional hose you just buy at Lowe's for watering a garden is not suitable for drinking, even though we did. But the RV ones, the ones that are rated for RV use are, and I got one somewhere, but I don't use it much for anything. But I know if I'm gonna in the future drink off a hose, just get the RV rated ones, and who knows? There's a slightly better. I've never tried rollerblades at all. Oh, that would be fun. I used to hold on to cars and the bus when I had when I was skateboarding. The only thing I didn't do, and I did it actually one time when my motorcycle wasn't something was wrong with it, and I held on to the door handle of my mom's car, and she actually gave me a ride all the way home. But I tried it with a bus a few times, but only for a short time. I didn't do the whole try to get home, get a free ride from the bus by whole, because they would have, once they would have seen me do that, they'd freak out. But I did it a little bit. And then occasionally we had parents that were really cool, or like my friends' parents were same thing with bicycles. We'd hold on to and in the 70s and 80s cars, you had some formidable door handles. Like if it's just say it was a Cadillac or something, it's not going to fall off. You just grab onto that and try not to speed wobble the front wheel, whether it's skateboard or bicycle or whatever. But I bet there's people who have actually gotten injured doing the stupid stuff we would do as kids. You had to really pay attention to Evel Knievel's techniques to not get hurt doing these stupid stunts. And I'm not talking about jumping, just anything. Or pay attention to the people who don't fall and crack their head open. And I've come close, though. The stupid things we do as kids. That's what this whole life should be called, the title. Well, hell, I've been here a little longer than I planned to. Wow, a 3-hour live. I probably got plenty of, well, a few subs over this. And that's why I've been trying to just push it over 500. It's good to see you. I know you mentioned a country. I know one guy in what I can't even, I'm not even sure what community we call it, that's from that area. So maybe you're from another continent. And hopefully maybe it's a person I perhaps know. I don't know. I don't know that he's an OG Venom gamer, but he could be. Okay, yeah, I mean, I'm not going to say who you are, but it'd be cool. It's good seeing you here. And yeah, I need to end the live, and it'll be interesting if I got a few subs. Um, yeah, maybe I'll go home or could stop at the store and grab some more food, but I think I'm good. So it's good talking to you. I might have missed a few of the things you said. It's too bad YouTube doesn't save this stuff, but it doesn't. So I'm quickly just looking through there. Sometimes people will leave a message or something and assume I read it, and then I don't always. So I'm going back through it a little bit. Yeah, I don't know if I'll ever make it to that continent. If I knew someone there, maybe. I admire some of the people that have gone there. I know a few people that have, but I don't know. There's a lot of places I'm not going to go because I probably would want to head up with a tourist group or something. But when I was younger, I wanted to travel the whole world. Now I don't know. I got to be a little more choosy where I decide to go. Okay, I read most all that stuff. Alrighty. I will take off. So the tail end of that accident that was there wasn't a bad one, thank God. If there was a horrible accident, I don't know that I'd go live and document it. All right, well, thanks everybody who showed up. One of these days I'll do an open line thing where people can call in. I'll try to improve my lives, but I know perhaps some days are worse lives than others. But I don't know if I want to improve, but I'm not really that motivated to. I just hope it just happens over time. All right, you guys have a good morning, good night, good evening. Thank you for coming, and this was Night Flight. Take care.